try to put down the question on the chat box, or if you feel like we use votes, if you feel like you raise your hand as well, you will be recognized as well, so that you can be able to at least to ask the question from the speaker. So for today's talk, a plenary talk will be given by Professor Hitoshi Abe from KEK in Tsukuba, Japan. So he'll be talking about the photon factory, some AfPS studies, and a message for Africa. Here you go, Prof.
Okay, thank you for inviting me to this wonderful conference, African Writers Conference 6. Today I will share a couple of that studies at the photon factory and give some message for our African Writers project. So let me introduce myself a bit. My name is Hitoshi Abe, Associate Professor at Synchrotron Radiation Division, Institute of Material Structure Science, KK. And I also belong to Ibaraki University. And I'm a beamline scientist of beamline 9A and 9C at photon factory, which are AfPS beamline. And I am a member of International X-ray Absorption Society Executive Committee and also a member of IUCR Commission on AfPS. So all of my research projects have been performed using AfPS, and I will share some topics, some recent topics with you today. Okay, so KK is located in the middle of Japan and is accessible from Tokyo Station or Narita International Airport in a few hours. And we have actually two synchrotron radiation rings in our institute called Photon Factory and the Photon Factory Advanced Ring, PFAR. And we have more than 3,500 unique users per year. So we have more than or nearly 50 end stations in our two rings. Okay, one is Photon Factory and the other is Photon Factory Advanced Ring. So Photon Factory is operated with a wave energy of 2.5 GeV, and PFAR is operated with 6.5 eV, so which can provide higher X energy than the Photon Factory. So our facility is more than 40 years old, so it's a bit older, but we can carry out many experiments. For example, macromolecular crystallography, PX, we have 5 beamlines through this field. And also small angle X-ray scattering SACs, we have 3 beamlines. So you may imagine that biochemistry or biostructural research is very vigorously performed. And also we have soft X region beamlines, XPS or X-ray absorption spectroscopy, and also SPECSAM. It's more than 10 beamlines. And we have hard X-ray beamlines at the photon factory, 6 beamlines. Here 9A, 9A, 9C, 12C, and 10A, which is for a high energy X-ray absorption spectroscopy. And the other 2 is somewhat special beamlines, which is time resolved, which is for time resolved measurement, and also a semi-micro beam station. Okay, so what is AfPS? AfPS is the abbreviation of X-ray absorption fine structure. By analyzing veins, we have information on chemical state or valence state, and also we can discuss symmetry of around the elements of interest. And by analyzing X-axis region, we have information on bond ranks and also the number of surrounding atoms, so-called coordination number. And also more detailed analysis gives us information about distribution and thermal vibration of the atoms. And this information can be obtained with element specificity. And we observe local structures, not a long range periodicity. So we can measure, of course, solid or liquid or gas, whatever, which we can put the sample between in the measurement equipment. Okay, so veins spectra are a fingerprint of materials. For example, here we have two Dane specula, one for copper metal and the other is a copper oxide. Usually, oxide species show higher absorption edge positions, and also we can identify unknown materials by using this kind of standard spectrum. Sorry. And also component fraction of samples, your samples can be estimated by linear combinatorial fitting of these standard reference materials. Okay, and the bond lengths can be obtained by analyzing X-axis. But first we subtract background, and then the X-axis is converted from photon energy to wave number. And then we have X-axis functions, which is X-axis, the oscillatory spectrum. And this X-axis function is performed via Fourier transform, and we have radial distribution function, like function here. So you see the peak here. We have some atoms around this bond length. This is not the actual bond length, but we can analyze this specula with consideration of phase shift. So the nearest neighbor atomic distance plus including phase shift are shown in here. So the bond length can be obtained by analyzing with the phase shift. And then the peak area is proportional to coordination number. So we have bond length and coordination number by analyzing this X-axis peak. Okay, and we can measure that specula at synchrotron radiation facilities by scanning monochromata like this. This is iron speculum here from roughly 7,000 electron volts to nearly 8,000 electron volts. We have that specula of iron. And by analyzing this oscillatory behavior, the bond lengths are obtained. And from the Dane's region, we have information on chemical states. Okay, this is the equation of well-known single scattering X-axis. And the chi k is the known as X-axis function, X-axis oscillation, and it consists of two parts. One is the amplitude, and the other is oscillation or phase. And the yellow highlighted values are the fitting parameters. So n is the number of surrounding atoms, so-called coordination number, and of course r is the nearest neighbor distance. And sigma is the parameter for summer vibration of a distribution around the atom. So by using this equation, we have information on the coordination number and the bond distance around the absorbing atom. Okay, here the short table for comparison of X-axis and XRD, which are very known for to obtain some kind of physical property on the length. X-axis does not require a periodicity of structures, and we observe local structure around the atom of the interest in X-axis, because the ruler of the bond length is the double wave of the electron from the absorbing atom. As you know, X-ray should require X-ray diffraction requires the long-range periodicity of the materials of the sample, and of course, long-range order are observed. So these are the difference between the X-axis and X-ray diffraction. Okay, from here I will share some lab studies. One is balance state of calcium in calcium nitride, calcium and nitrogen compounds. And also I will show some bond formed in the catalyst. And I will show some calcium specula for food science or biochemistry related topics. And finally, if I have a time, I will show iron and titanium in glaze of the glaze ceramics for coloration. You see here, the first two topics is in the discipline of chemical science or material science, and the third and the first ones in the field of food science or biochemistry, And the final one is in the region of cultural artifacts or of heritage or archaeology. So you see here that ZAFS is applicable to many disciplines or almost anything you're interested in. Okay, here's the calcium KH Zane specula of the calcium and nitrogen including compounds. Here, all these chemicals have the thermal charge of calcium 2+, but absorption H energies are different. So the question is, what are the real oxidation numbers of these calcium species like? So each speculum shows a characteristic specular features. And here we can estimate the oxidation numbers by analyzing absorption H position. Here, the enlarged image of the absorption H of the calcium KH Zane specula, and we lead the H energy from these spectra, like 4036.03 eV, 4036.01 per eV, and the like. So as I said before, elements with higher oxidation numbers show higher H energies. For example, metal calcium will show the H position and H energy at 4035 electron volts, and calcium 2+ shows 4040 electron volts. And these compounds show these absorption H energy positions, and oxidation numbers can be estimated from these H energies. I don't go details into to analyze these oxidation energies analysis, but we have oxidation number by analyzing these 5 elements, considering the calcium NH2 has a 2+ state. So you see here, for example, calcium 2N, the calcium in calcium 2N has the actual oxidation number of 0.32. Okay. So oxidation number close to 0 means the metallic or covalent, and the oxidation number nearly 2 means ionic state. So we can analyze the real oxidation numbers by analyzing absorption H energies. Okay, next topic is the anchoring bond between leucine and nitrogen atoms of a catalyst. It's crucial for high ammonia synthesis activity. As you know, the ammonia production is very important process to produce fertilizers. The well-known double promoted iron catalyst is used in industry, and it's the very high temperature and high pressure process. So it's very energy consuming process. So the catalysts working under milder conditions are required. So here's 2 ammonia synthesis catalysts, lutetium calcium 2NH and lutetium on calcium NH. The former one has the more active properties. And the question is, are there any difference between the 2 which are similar at a glance? So we perform depth analysis to observe local structures of leucine of these 2 catalysts. Here's the leucine KH Zanes of these 2 catalysts. You see the H position of these catalysts are almost the same, and they are in the metallic state. This is examples for the transforms of the 2 catalysts and also the leucine metal. You see here the leucine interaction in those 2 catalysts. And here you can find only this peak only for the leucine on calcium 2NH catalyst, which are more active than the other. It is assigned to leucine nitrogen bond. Here, once again, this is leucine bond, which is a intra-particle bond in the leucine nanoparticles. And the other interaction is assigned to ruthenium and nitrogen, which are formed between ruthenium nanoparticle and the nitrogen in the support. So ruthenium and calcium 2NH has ruthenium and nitrogen bond between the particles in support. This is called we call it anchoring bond. The ruthenium nitrogen bonds work to anchor ruthenium particle to the support to prevent from aggregation or from growing, and to maintain high activities for ammonia synthesis. So this is the TEM image of the ruthenium and calcium 2NH, which have very sharp distribution and also very small particles. This means they are not aggregated even after the reaction. On the other hand, ruthenium and calcium nitrogen, which doesn't have ruthenium nitrogen bond, show a broad distribution and with a tail. So this means these particles were aggregated during the chemical reaction. Okay, next I will show some topic on food science. Okay, calcium in spinach was calcium oxide, which this is the conclusion. Why did we carry out this work? Calcium intake is a key to decrease the risk of osteoporosis, and spinach contains fair amount of calcium, which is similar to milk, but the bioavailability is quite low as 5%, and milk shows more than 30%. And there were no direct evidence reported that calcium oxalate is a major chemical form of calcium in spinach. Generally, in the paper, a sentence mentioned the most likely explanation is that calcium in spinach is complex with oxalate, which is this is believed in the field of this calcium in the field of food science, because it is written by the famous group. And I subsequently revealed this is true or not. And then I performed measurement of experiments to check, to confirm this is true or not. And this spectrum was obtained. This is spinach, the calcium veins of spinach, and dotted line is calcium oxalate. You see, these are the same. So we can conclude that calcium in spinach is calcium oxalate. This is performed non-destructively, and we label it the calcium in spinach is calcium oxalate. So we say that the more than 25 years issue has been solved with the direct evidence. In addition, calcium oxalate is an insoluble salt and is too difficult for humans to absorb. Okay, I would like to skip this because I don't have enough time. So I would like to go next topic, sorry, but this is the details of the calcium in spinach study. Okay, next one, sorry. Okay, and the next one is, okay, I would like to say, show a message that even an easy Zane spectrum can solve an issue, as I show in the calcium in spinach case. Okay, next, microgreens. So microgreens are young vegetable greens harvested soon after the cotyledon leaves have grown. And broccoli microgreens is one of the most famous and important microgreens. And calcium application to broccoli microgreens increases biomass and delay senescence. This is broccoli microgreen. And they also sprayed broccoli microgreens with calcium chloride aqueous solution for 1, 10, and 20 millimolar, and compare to microgreens sprayed with water only. This is control sample. And they say that the best result was seen in the 10 millimolar calcium chloride treated broccoli microgreens. But neither reasons nor mechanism were explained why 10 micrometer is the best. So I'd like to clarify whether applied calcium is accumulated in the broccoli microgreens and what chemical states calcium have in microgreens. So they say that the 10 millimolar calcium chloride is the best to grow them. However, a place or chemical state or mechanism of the calcium species in it are not revealed, not reported. For example, chemical state is directly related to safety, so it's important to clarify the chemical states of calcium in broccoli microgreen or food. And these kind of questions are raised. Where do calcium species go? What chemical states do they take? And how calcium affects their growth? So I'd like to bring these sciences to synchrotron radiation facilities. And we performed the experiment at our beamline 15A1 at Photon Parkley. And we grow broccoli microgreens with calcium chloride solution and water only. And we picked up these two leaves and measured X-ray fluorescence from the cotyledon leaves. Here, the image of the X-ray fluorescence of calcium, we see a brighter region, bright spots in calcium-added broccoli microgreens. And we didn't observe any bright spots in the broccoli microgreen, which are grown with water only. So calcium concentrated areas were found in the cotyledon leaves of the calcium-added broccoli microgreen. And the next questions are, for example, what is the chemical state of this calcium? Which tissue or organ takes calcium in? And more questions we have. For example, we analyzed calcium veins over, sorry? The calcium veins of a blood spot in a broccoli microgreen is totally different from those of calcium CO3 or calcium oxalate or calcium SO4. And this resembles that of 10 micromolar calcium chloride solution, which means calcium in the broccoli microgreen cotyledon exists as calcium 2 plus a hydrated complex. So we examined broccoli microgreens treated by a 10 millimolar calcium chloride solution, and we found that the calcium concentrated area in the cotyledon leaves of the calcium chloride treated broccoli microgreen. Yeah, we found calcium 2 plus state hydrated ion in the cotyledon leaves. I think I don't have enough time, so I would like to skip this topic. Sorry, but I just want to say that. Sorry? Okay, here's science cases expected at the African rice source conceptual design report. There's some medical studies or African cultural heritage, and also mineralogy and natural resources, and also functional materials. I'd like to give some comments of this natural resources science case. As you know, many natural resources are produced in your continent. For example, platinum, South Africa produces more than 80% of the world's production. Diamonds, Botswana produces more than 20% of the world's production. Cobalt, the Democratic Republic of Congo produces nearly 70% of the world's production. So African countries produce precious metals and minerals, but the problem is they are consumed or used in somewhere else. For example, platinum are consumed in China, Europe, and US mainly, and diamond consumed in the US, China, India, mainly for industrial usage. And cobalt is also consumed to produce batteries, electric vehicle, personal computer, mobile phones, whatever. And this could be linked to the e-waste issue. So I think that more African countries can produce them if proper expertise and means provided. So these kind of topics can be a part of good science case in the African Rights Source project. And you may think that why am I involved in and enthusiastic about the African Rights project? In Japan, in 1980s, Professor Matsushita and Professor Ota and colleagues had been to Stanford to run synchrotron radiation. And they came back to build the first Japanese dedicated synchrotron ring radiation facility, Photon Parkley, which is still operated. So we learned a lot from SLRL and the other advanced facility. I think now it's time for African Rights Source. And we have many friends like Herman Sekaji, Simon Philip. And I was impressed by discussion with Professor Herman Winnick at our international conference and got involved in this project. And yeah, I met Philip at this conference at AfLS 2015, and he visited us to perform our experiments. He gave a talk 6 years ago, and he showed us a figure, and it appears in his publication. So he has land synchrotron experiments in our institute, and you must be the next person to visit us and to be a key person to build the African right source. So I will share 5 important things for you: administration, budget, curiosity, design and massing and beamlines, and experts, professors, scientists, engineers, technicians, or students. And I think this is one of the most important among these 5. So we'd like to offer opportunities to you to run expertise in synchrotron radiation. Thank you for your attention.
Wow, thank you very, very much. This is an eye-opener as well for the continent, and as well it's a very, very educative and very well clear. So colleagues, I think we have a lot of different areas to ask a question from Prof. Hitoshi. So now the floor is open for us to.
Just quickly a comment that Hitoshi, it was such an awesome talk, such beautiful detective work in each of the examples that you gave. And I really appreciated your message to Africa. And we definitely value you as a very important friend in our roadmap towards African light source. And we know you have been very effective also with training, also promoting, and then offering these opportunities. So thank you very much. And certainly your work is very inspiring. I particularly liked the food science. And just to let you know, the African Academy of Science got a new president, going to draw her attention to your work because she's a food scientist. And so
good
we
news,
hope
good
to,
news.
yes, we hope maybe she will be one of your users soon on a food science project. So I would like to show her your work, and thank you very much for bringing food science as well. I think your picture on the different sciences that Africa could do, I hope will also have food science in there one day, and it was really amazing. I need to study more carefully those slides, but just another area that I only just learned of is the applicability, and it was beautiful to see your work there. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Alessandra have a question.
Yeah.
Hi, Hitoshi. It was
Hi.
It was a great talk. Thank you for everything. I have 2 quick questions. I know you said you didn't have time to discuss it, but I would love to know even any details about how you converted the edge energy into a quantitative oxidation state on the calcium. I think that's fascinating. And also with the hydrated calcium hotspots on the broccoli, was that the broccoli? Did you try to rinse them away? I mean, were they really part of the plant, or could it have been spray from the calcium spray? You know what I'm trying to say?
Okay. First question, we have edge energy at the calcium 0 state and calcium 2+ state, which is the standard material, let's say. So it's proportional to the edge energy. Oxidation state is nearly proportional to edge energy position. So it's easily to interpolate or extrapolate with the standard materials. So I can send you my paper to you if you want.
Sure.
And the next question,
is it linear?
Usually it believes it's linear, but sometimes not. But we can extrapolate or interpolate. Yeah. And the next question, I list it. before linseed, we have a calcium chloride particle. It's solid state. So we observe the similar specular to calcium chloride solid at the powder. But after linseed, we have such kind of calcium hydrated ion. So we believe it's calcium hydrated ion are in the wave. Thank you for your nice questions.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the excellent presentation. Is there any colleagues, any other person have a question for you? Or then try to put your email in the chat so that in case people want to contact you concerning that. And thank you very much for your consistency in time, and then also with the African Lives also.
Okay, I put my email address in the chat. So if you have some question to me, please feel free to give your email.
All right. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
believe it's nice.
Bye.
Okay. Yeah. Bye. All right. I think for the next question, it's going to be from Professor Thierry. So here we'll be talking about the ESTEC lab in Benin as a model for human capacity building in X-ray science. Over to you, Prof.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Philip. Thank you, everyone, and thanks for inviting me. I think the X-Tech Lab has many friends in the audience, Professor Connell, Philip, and all the colleagues that I can see directly here. So what I would like to, first of all, my name is Thierry d'Almeida. I'm the head of the education and research programs at the CMSCT project here in Benin. I will share my screen with you. See, do anything just to share the screen. Yeah. Okay. Okay. I don't know if you see my screen now. Normally you should see it.
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay. Okay. Yes, so the X-Tech Lab is a facility that has been running now for 3 years. 3 years. We started in 2019, and we had a little bit of break during COVID, and but it's here's my outline. So just to give you a few elements of context and the motivation for implementing this facility. So here in CMSCT, I'll let you know what CMSCT is shortly. Our goals and initiate our goals, I will share with you the main objective and the achievement to date and the challenges and that we should see in the prospect. Here I'm speaking to you from our first campus. It's called Semen 1. It's a building in Cotonou, Republic of Benin. I think Philip is very familiar with this place. It's a place that is dedicated to training, research, and entrepreneurship programs. The program itself were launched in 2018, but we moved in this building in 2020. It's a 4,500 square meter building with many rooms, auditorium spaces dedicated to research. Language learning is a very important part of our program because most of our programs are in English, although we are in a French-speaking countries, and you will understand why. Nigeria is next door, and it's a very important partner for us. And the overall context of this initiative, this program, which is one of Benin government flagship project, actually, is the challenges that we're facing. You know that every year we have about 20 million young Africans reaching the job market and not finding jobs. Very few of them, a small proportion of them actually find formal employment. And we are experiencing in Benin, but in Africa in general, a terrible shortage of skilled labor in important sectors. main sectors are energy, water infrastructure, but also health, information and communication technologies, and of course, creative and cultural industries. And this is a major constraint for achieving the goals in terms of socioeconomic development. So we need to find a way to develop new models that can promote access to knowledge and expertise, not only at a national scale, but at a regional scale. Our countries were divided quite arbitrarily, and it's very important to think in an integrated way when we design programs in education and research and entrepreneurship. So that's the main motivation of this program, and the mission of Senecity in general is to meet the skill and employability needs of African markets. And it has three pillars: education, research, and entrepreneurship. I'll focus on the research here because our idea really is to develop very important programs of R&D and applied research that can really bring concrete solutions to the key challenges that we face. It's very important to reconnect research to the needs because as we notice very often in our university, research programs are usually designed or are designed outside the continent. Most of our researchers will actually build their program following a call for projects, and these projects are often designed outside the continent and do not sufficiently tackle the issues, are not sufficiently aligned with our priorities. So it's very important to design the research project and to fix the priorities locally. The X-Tech Lab initiative was born from a collaboration between the LAMP is Light Sources for Africa, the America, Asia, the Middle East and Pacific project, a collaboration with International Union of Crystallography, the International Union for Pure and Applied Physics, and the Senecity project. It was actually an alignment of stars that these three initiatives managed to meet in 2018, and the project, due to the strong political incentive and also the fact that there was really a push for having this, to materialize this project, we were able to launch in a very short time after the decision was made, late in October 2018. We were able to start the program in May 2019, which is itself is the major achievement, because we had to buy some equipment and mobilize the learners and the supervisors, the lecturers, to start this open lab project. So the objective is really to equip different audiences, researchers, young scientists, professionals, with practical and hands-on skills. In Africa, in our universities, there's often one trend that we've noticed, that theoretical concepts are pretty well mastered. But due to the lack of equipment, the lack of experimental platform, our young students don't have many occasions to actually practice and to do research in a tangible way, practicing with equipment, running numerical simulation, and solving problems this way. So the choice we made here is to highlight the importance of developing practical and analytical skills. And also the idea is directly connected to the African Light Source project, because what we actually try to do is to train a breeding ground of scientists who will be instrumental in operating future African light sources. So the projects are somehow connected. So the X-Tech Lab training offers focus on three main axes. One is crystallography and X-ray diffraction techniques. The other one is mathematical engineering and X-ray imaging, but I will get into some details so that you really understand what we're talking about. And since we are also characterizing materials in general, we are now developing thermal and mechanical characterization capabilities. It's very important. Of course, there is a part of fundamental, of theory, of variety of single crystal, powder diffraction, and so on. But the important thing, the most important thing, in order to be complementary to what is done in universities, is actually to have the student practice and practice and practice again. Why X-rays? Why X-rays techniques? Because one can ask the question, why do we focus on X-ray techniques? Because in our opinion, these are one of the most universal set of techniques that you can use because they apply to many different fields that are particularly relevant to our situation here in Benin and in Africa. We can apply X-ray techniques to agriculture, to health science, to energy, to energy storage, and to many other things. So it's very important this is the core of our experimental techniques. And from there, we are also, as needed, developing other characterization needs. We were first equipped with a single crystal diffractometer. So most of our students who knew everything about space groups and X-ray intensities and electron density distribution had a chance then to actually determine structure with using a single crystal diffractometer. We've recently equipped the lab with a powder diffractometer, and these are the first equipment of their kind in Benin. And since a few weeks now, we have now equipped the lab with a microtomograph, and actually the next training session will be around this new instrument. So our main focus is sustainability. Sustainability on everything for managing natural resources, water, forest, mine, etc. Also developing ecological and sustainable materials for building, for packaging, for many other applications. So around the X-Tech Lab, you have these four components. Of course, you have X-ray scattering, of course, diffraction, and you have imaging, very important, and I'll come back to that in a few minutes and show you how it's directly used to solve problems related to construction, material, and so on, and thermal and mechanical analysis. One of the things that we're working on right now is actually to develop also the X-ray spectroscopy capability of the X-Tech Lab. Our motto here at City is IMA, if you prefer, Innovation Made in Africa. We have scientists. We don't have enough scientists, but we have scientists. And some of them are very talented, but the thing is, it's almost impossible for them to cross what we call the Death Valley. The Death Valley is to take an idea from the concept and to turn it into innovation. Very difficult, because we don't have the system that allows this trend, this itinerary. So our focus here in City is to develop a robust system that can help the maturation, the technological maturation of concepts that too often will not be developed and stay in the lab. So from basic scientific research at the X-Tech Lab, we are building a program to support researchers so that they can cross this Death Valley, and we work very closely with the private sector, with companies that can actually help maturing these ideas. But we do it in a very strategic way because we involve the end users at early stages of our process, our maturation process, so that we can get the input. And sometimes these inputs are very, very, very precious because it's good to see things from their perspective so that we can do things that will not be white elephant. So the X-Tech Lab training and research format is proving to be powerful. We've already trained several cohorts now. And the approach that we use, thanks to our lecturers who come from across the world, is proving to be efficient. And I'll show you later on why I'm saying that. For developing innovative pedagogies and quality education in science and tech, and collaborative and cross-disciplinary research, you see that the same problem, the same issue will be tackled from many perspectives. We use physicists, chemists, and math engineers, and different profiles that see the same problem and collaborate together in order to come up with solutions. And also, we tackle fields that are key sectors in developing countries, including health, energy, agricultural food, agri-food, material science, urban planning programs, etc. What have we achieved to date? This is in our Western African region. It's the first regional it's a training platform. It's open to everybody. And this was a very strong condition that I put before I took charge of this program. I wanted it to be entirely open to everybody. And last year, of course, we have people participating, learners from all over Africa, and not only from neighboring countries. We had people from Zimbabwe, from Kenya, from Ethiopia, from Senegal, from Cameroon, Congo, etc. And for the first time last year, we had learners from outside the continent. We had somebody from India and some people from Jamaica also, which is very good. So we're now having the fourth. We had already 4 training sessions organized from 19 to 2023, and as I told you, COVID was a bit of setback for us. So far, more than 15 African countries were represented in those training sessions. And we had almost 30, actually the correct figure is almost 30 lecturers from Africa, Europe, the United States, South America, Asia, and the Middle East also, because we had some lecturers from Jordan. We had trained more than 100 learners, including graduate students, engineers, professionals from various sectors, including the pharmaceutical industries. And we were able to reach more than 1,000 students from local universities. And that is a very important achievement for us because, as I said, some of the practical trainings had disappeared from the curricula. And we were able to reintroduce that thanks to the dedication of our staff here at the X-Tech Lab. Papers, we're now in the process of writing new papers based on the result obtained during the last 2 campaigns. And the papers are focused on practical and relevant issues here. The management of forest resources, a very nice paper last year on teak wood. And so we are targeting of course, scientific journals with peer-reviewed scientific journals, and little by little, we expect to reach higher impact scientific journals, thanks to the hard work of various team working with the X-Tech Lab. Recently, we've had an important event in September, last September, because we had the inauguration of the powder diffractometer. with the participation of key institutions, including the IUCR, the LAMP, the AFCA, local universities, officials from almost all the ministries here in Benin. And the first session was held between September 19, 29. The focus was on powder and single crystal diffraction techniques, and we had 20 participants and 10 lecturers from various countries. The next major event will start on Monday, coming Monday. That's why we are very busy. We just had the microtomograph installed, and this session will be dedicated to material science. It will focus on material science, mathematical engineering, and X-ray imaging. The combination of these three components is very important for us because it's already proved to be efficient. We are now developing a new generation of construction bricks in order to have candidates in substitution to the concrete that we use all the time here in our building, and that is not ecological friendly, that does not allow thermal comfort. So we are improving the model of our bricks based on local ingredients and bio resources also. And these bricks have been now really qualified, I could say, because some of the characterization have been done already. And we want to make standards of bricks that can compete with the best construction materials in the world and offer, be accessible to more people and offer more comfort and more sustainability to our habitats. So in order to do that, we combine skills from various fields, of course, material science, physics, but we work very closely now with the mathematicians because some of their tools, including the one that allow the extraction of morphological parameters from images, from structure, is something that we use and we combine with tomography in order to extract parameters such as the grain size, the size of the pores in the brick, in the bricks that we make, the orientation of the grains and things like that. And we also work with thermal scientists who run simulation and improve the performances of these bricks. Hopefully, when you visit Benin sometime, you'll be able to visit a demonstrator made of these bricks that is already becoming a reality here in Benin. We have challenges, of course. We have important challenges because we want to make the initiative sustainable. And of course, as you can guess, funding and partnerships, strong partnerships are the main challenges that we face. Initially, the government has funded this program heavily. Now we need to find ways to make it sustainable. That's why we are developing and strengthening our partnership with companies that can need services, so including mining companies, pharmaceutical companies, cosmetic companies. So all these services are being developed now, and actually there will be one department dedicated to the services because we need to get funding in order to make this initiative live, of course. One of the main difficulties that we meet for attracting students from outside the country is the difficulty to travel in Africa. You know, it's much easier for me to fly to Paris than to go to Lagos, that is just next door to my country. And that's a shame. And we have many people from all over Africa who want to attend this training session, but the cost of the travel tickets are just something that discourages everybody from coming. And we need to find a way to respond to that. So we need partnership and skills. So I'm just appealing to you. So if you have ideas that can help us build these schemes in order to help the mobility of students and lecturers inside the continent, that will be great. We are exploring various ways, but it's not easy. Of course, equipment, you know that one of the curses that we have in Africa is that sometimes we buy equipment, but after a while, they break down and they're not repaired. So maintenance, we are now thinking thoroughly into developing a strategy in order to have a robust maintenance program that can prevent breakdown, that can actually provide predictive maintenance. So we're working on that. We've been working on that for several months now, and hopefully we'll come up with something that can actually meet our needs. And if it works, it will be a model not only for the X-Tech Lab, but also for other facilities around the country. And of course, capacity building. I've already sent some of my collaborators abroad to get training, and we will be sending more and more to get training and to acquire more expertise in order to serve the community, our scientific community. I like to finish by giving a lot of credits to all the collaboration. This kind of initiative is something that can only be done collaboratively. So it takes everyone's effort to make this live. So we had, of course, a strong support from my initial employer, which is the Atomic Energy Commission in France, the CEA. I like to thank them because they allowed me to take time off in order to develop this initiative in Africa. I would like to thank everybody else, of course, the African Light Source, the LAMP, UNESCO, all the academic partners, the World Bank, the French Embassy that has been helping also, the Cambridge Crystallographic Data Center, and many others. Thank you, everyone. It's the end of my talk, and I'm available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you for championing the cause for championing Africans, because I know your dream every time we met is always about a continent. I see that we're getting there. So the colleagues, any questions for okay, all right, Tabitha?
My hand was not first. I think that went in order of Sakazi, then someone.
No, that's okay. Go on. Go ahead. It's no problem. I'll go after you.
Okay. Then. Thank you.
Very nice.
Ask
my question anytime.
Okay. Very nice talk, Theory. I was my question is about the robust plan for maintenance, and then the next bullet behind it was workforce development. The question is are the plans being developed inclusive of training a workforce who might be able to handle repairs, maintenance, and really get a deeper understanding of how to build and repair these instruments?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Tabitha. And it's good to see you again. It's been a long time. Yeah, I'm very pleased to see you. Yes, the maintenance issue is something that we should tackle in a different way, not just like with a quick fix. So that's why we're building a program to train technicians. So here at the X-Tech Lab, I have been given the validation, let's say, to develop a scheme that will only train technicians. So we will be training technicians, and we have targets. So it's about 50 in the next 2 years. So 50 technicians will be trained on various instruments in order that to have a workforce that can provide general, very specialized support to all kind of lab equipment. Now, if we have a breakdown of something that requires the intervention of more specialized resources, then we can appeal to the provider, the manufacturer, and so on. But even this basic workforce is missing right now. So that when you have small minor troubles, you cannot fix them because we don't have the workforce. So this is our main goal, is to really develop that work first so that it can serve not only the ExTech Lab, but all the local universities, also the neighboring country university. So this is a flagship project of CEMC, and we're working on it. Hopefully, we'll be able to start. We are discussing now with a partner that is in Germany, and we will be able to start the programs, the training programs in 2025. Yes, in 1.5 years from now.
Like Terry, there's a question in the chat I want to answer because it's very important as well for the continent. In the chat box.
Who's speaking?
That's Philip.
It's me, Philip. I want you to look at the chat box. There's a question for the continent, so which is very important for the researchers.
Okay, good. Which type of sample do you okay. We prefer, okay, I will answer one question. Now, we have a sample preparation lab being built. The sample preparation is, I used to tell my students that it's more important to have the sample well prepared than to actually go to the measurement. It's because I come from shock physics, you have to prepare the sample because it's a single event experiment. When you go to do the measurement, you have to optimize the chances to get good quality data. So sample preparation is key for us, and we can prepare powders, thin single crystal. So we're working on the crystallization facility also. And also, we don't do thin films now, but we are, it's certainly something that we will develop. We also prepare sample for tomography. It's very important to be able to cut a cylinder out of a given material and prepare it so that it can be used inside the tomography chamber. We also installing now in situ devices that can actually apply the pressures or change.
You accidentally muted yourself.
Sorry. To access the facilities is straightforward. All you have to do is go online and fill an application form, present your project, and if you are selected, there are, of course, there are some interview, let's say, and you really select the candidate, because then when they're selected, they can get scholarship and support in order to travel, and their fees are minimized actually, because most of the funding is most of the cost of the training is covered by our partner. Other questions?
Professor Kazi?
Kazi is on mute.
You're muted.
Sorry, yeah, so excellent presentation, Thierry. We were so proud of what you've been able to accomplish. I wanted to point out that there are actually three people. Thierry is sort of the director, but we also have the people who do the heavy lifting, because, you know, he's the big man, so he can just tell other people what to do. But Sidwan, can you unvideo, whatever you call it,
Yes.
show yourself, because there are two people, Sidwan Bono, and there he is. Yes. And
they are the most important people, because they are the one doing everything in the lab.
Yes.
I just supervise.
Right. And Marielle Agbahumbata, who is not here, but she's also on the executive committee of the African Light Source.
Yes.
So as for technician training, it would be great to connect you. We started this organization about exactly 20 years ago, in 2003, called the African Laser Center. And one of our programs is technician training, realizing that, if something breaks, you don't want to have to wait to have, people to come either, in person or send parts or, things that you can just train people to do. So it would be great. I will connect you then with the person,
that would be great to have this connection.
Yeah, I think that's extremely important. And also I wanted to, we had a great celebration that we attended in Benin in September, celebrating the arrival of the powder diffractometer and X-Tech Lab in general. So we're so proud. X-Tech Lab really, it started out of our colloquium program at LAMP, where we send professionals to various regions of the world to give lectures, and Thierry did that for crystallography and advanced light sources, and somehow it made it to the president, and so the rest is history. So we're really so proud. And when I went there and saw all the great things you were doing, I just went back to my hotel and just cried. It's just to see, I mean, it's just amazing that, these things can, little idea can just bloom the way it has. So congratulations and thanks for that.
Thank you very much. And this would not have happened without your inspiration and your guidance, Kazi. I'd like to thank you. Yeah, very important. I will always remember when you first contacted me back in 2018. I didn't know that this will turn into this great adventure. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
All right, Lawrence, do you have something?
No, that's no.
All right. Thank you very much, Thierry. Always been to the Tech Lab nearly every year, and amazing. I understand a lot, and so I believe that at least we are getting there. All right. Thank you once again for the great presentation. All right.
Thank you very much. And the next people we would like to see here are Tabeta, Simon, Lawrence, and everybody. You're welcome to visit sometime.
All right. The next speaker is going to be Prof. Andrew. And Andrew will be talking about the diamond light source, machine science, and Stat 2. Over to you.
Thanks. Hello, everyone. I hope you can all hear me and that you can see my slides. Thank you for inviting me to speak today. So my title's morphed into recent highlights from Diamond Light Source now. Really what I'm going to be focusing on, I guess, is some of the what's been coming out of the life sciences division at Diamond, because that's the teams that I'm really involved with. But in terms of what I will talk about with, if it goes on to the next slide. So I'll give a quick overview to Diamond Light Source, highlight some of the recent work that's come out of the MX beamlines that we have for macromolecular crystallography. A small update from what goes on in the Electron Bioimaging Center at Diamond, where we do a lot of electron microscopy on biological samples. Give you an update to what's happening with Diamond 2, and then finish off with thoughts towards what can be done around maybe future of START and towards START 2. Okay. So for those of you that may not know, Diamond is the largest scientific facility to be built in the UK in over 40 years. And it's basically a private company, and it's a joint venture between the UK government, which funds us through the Research Council, SCFC, and the Wellcome Trust. And since we first became operational in 2007 with our first of 7 phase 1 beamlines, we've served over 14,000 scientists from academia and industry, provided training to more than 8,000 PhD students, and we have sort of 6,000 visitors a year. So there's a lot going on the site. And I say since 2007, more and more beamlines have opened up, and I think we're at 33 now, I think the end of phase 3. And we're now looking towards the future, what we do towards the Diamond upgrade that's called Diamond 2, and I'll talk a bit about that later. So this is the most recent picture I could find of Diamond now that we have solar panels on our roof. So Diamond itself is located in the Oxfordshire countryside, so about 20 miles south of Oxford in the UK. We're based on this Rutherford Appleton laboratory site, the Harwell campus, and we're sort of co-located with lots of other infrastructure in the UK. So there's around about £2 billion worth of infrastructure investment on the site, covering 240 different organisations, 6,000 people, over 710 acres. So I'm just trying to label on the map some of the things that are going on the site. So we've got Diamond nicely in the middle. We do a lot of work with the research complex at Harwell, which we're a partner in. And this is quite an important building from our support science laboratories, whether you're accessing our life sciences or physical sciences beamlines. There's a lot of sample support available for crystallography, cryo-EM, material science, and catalysis here. We also work obviously closely with ICIS Neutron and Muon Source, as well as the Central Laser Facility in the UK as well. And then again, also on the site, we have various research institutes such as the Rosalind Franklin Institute, the National Quantum Computing Centre, and the Faraday Institution, which help, we do a lot of collaborative work there as well. Now, the site also is home to a lot of industry. So we have the Vaccines Manufacturing and Innovation Centre, and Moderna at the moment is currently building a new research and development site on one of the playing fields. So just to give you an overview of Diamond itself, we are split between the life and the physical sciences divisions in terms of the science that goes on. And so what I'm mainly going to be talking about is the life sciences work, because that's what I'm involved with. So within life sciences, we cover macromolecular crystallography, so some soft condensed matter work. Obviously, there's physical applications there as well. Some hard X-ray work, imaging and microscopy in tissues and cells, and then obviously biological cryo-imaging, which encompasses the Electron Bioimaging Center, as well as our soft cryotomography beamline B24. Access to Diamond is by peer review process. It's free at the point of access. And although here it says travel, sample, shipping, accommodations costs may be covered, the key thing is if you can't, we can cover it for UK and EU researchers technically outside of the European Union, then you need to find those costs yourselves, but really we'd say get in contact because there are pots of money we can access to enable visits. Okay, so across Diamond, in terms of the life sciences, what I'm focused on is work on the MX beamlines. What I do at Diamond itself actually is I lead the membrane protein laboratory. And I'll talk a very quick bit about that later, but effectively life science is sort of set up to the drive integrative dynamic structural biology, I think is the way to put it. So whether, going towards the left, increasing biological complexity, or sort of to the right in terms of increasing resolution, but also looking at dynamic interplays at those different resolutions, that's what we're geared up to try and do. And say the lab that I run, the membrane protein lab, we were very recently refunded to try and push integrative membrane protein structural biology at Diamond. And the reason for the focus on membrane proteins is the difficulty in obtaining samples, whether for cryo-electron microscopy or for crystallography or even soft condensed matter applications. So it means we have the laboratory and the facilities on site for researchers to come and use, again, free at the point of access in terms of consumables and so forth, so that we can make sure you get the best quality samples that you can then use to apply for beam time through the rapid access mechanisms or larger bag applications. So if you want to take the cryo-electron microscopy example, we can help you get the screening data that you need then to make those applications that will give you a chance at getting time to use the Titan Krioses that we have at Diamond to collect your data sets to solve your protein structures. Diamond offers a lot of training support, whether that's through workshops or when you just come use the beamline, or the microscope. So, okay, a lot of what we do now is very remote, but if you've never used the beamline or the microscope before, then we want to hear from you. The beamline scientists, microscope scientists are always very, very happy to help people out, talk people through, especially if you are ever able to come to the site. They love that now because we hardly ever see anybody in the way now, because so much is done remotely. So that's certainly, we're very, very happy to support that sort of thing. But in addition, we also support lots of PhD students between Diamond and various universities. We have industrial placement students in for a year, and then various workshops. So we're in the 10th year of running the CCP4 Diamond Light Source workshop for students, which is it's just started the hybrid version of that. So, I mean, COVID taught us, we were put online through COVID, but it's nice that we can come back in person. But what we do now is a sort of introduction to the workshop, 2 days, for 2 days in advance, introduce students to what's going on, and that then helps target the training we deliver later on. Then for our block allocation groups, we also provide training 3 times a year for macromolecular crystallography beamlines, normally for on-site for 25 people each time. And EBIC also run various training courses for their groups as well. The next 2 being December and February, which are focused on EPU and TOMO. For serial crystallography, there's annual training with practical experience on site. XChem run a user training week each week for supporting the fragment screening they do there, especially for first-time users, to make sure that you have the most efficient time when you come to use the facilities. And then I say we run a whole range of workshops throughout the year, every year. Some of the workshops that have been run in the past are sort of in pictures on the right-hand side here. And this covers things across macromolecular crystallography, soft X-ray tomography, electron tomography, single particle cryo-electron microscopy. So there's a whole range of courses that we support and run. I say the next iNext discovery sample preparation for single particle analysis is going to take place in January into next year. As I said already, you know, we're really open to requests of support for workshops, but also if you're on a beam or you're collecting data, then we want to, you know, you want some help or you want some training, then let us know. We're really happy to support that. So I wanted to now talk about some of the highlights from the different areas of Diamond that we've been involved with. There's not a huge amount of time, so it'll be very little snapshots of each thing. So just to give you an overview of what happens in macromolecular crystallography, this is the team that basically runs our MX portfolio. With 7 beamlines, I think at the moment, as well as support facilities such as the fragment screening with XChem or the XFEL hub for time-resolved crystallography and access to the XFEL sources around the world. Myself, we're running the membrane protein laboratory, and then obviously the computational teams behind the data processing software, ISPY-B, and as well as the sort of controls and GDA and things like that, and the engineers behind the beamlines as well. So well over sort of 70 people supporting the operation that we have going on. In terms of what our beamlines can do, this is the slide that tries to summarize everything in one. So all of our beamlines are tunable in terms of energy, with the exception of IO41, which is our fragment screening XChem beamline. In terms of sort of how automated they are, what we call highly automated, all beamlines, basically except for VMXM and I-23, have robotic control systems so that we can load 30-odd pucks in the dewars and then just screen through hundreds of crystals without, you know, sort of getting involved with the beam at all. And then there's various specialities and across the beamlines. VMXI is our in situ beamline, high throughput structural biology. I-24 is one of the microfocus beamlines. IO4 can also do microfocus. And if we want to go nanofocus, then VMXM is one of our very newer beamlines, and I'll give you an example of some work from the very recent work from VMXM shortly, where I mean, the smallest crystal we've now looked at is 0.5 micron and solved the structure from. And then we have sorts of specialist beamlines like I-23 that was originally conceived in terms of trying to solve experimental phasing, but now, you know, its really real utility is elemental analysis within crystals. And I'll give an example of that in a minute as well. So I-23, as I mentioned, you know, it's our experimental phasing and elemental analysis beamline. And so Kamal's recently published a paper in this year about the work that goes on this beamline. So obviously initially we're doing a lot of experimental phasing. That's now mainly shifted. There's some cases where we need to do experimental phasing, but with AlphaFold it's less needed. But what we can do is tell you what elements you have within your crystals. So we could look at potassium, we could look at calcium, sulfur, vanadium, chlorine, cadmium, and so forth. So we had one set of users here have a project where they wanted to know whether it was magnesium or potassium that was bound within the ribosome, and we were able to show with the absorption edge, so the potassium absorption edge, that this was actually potassium. Very quickly then for VMXI, as I mentioned, this is an in situ beamline. So instead of cryocooling your crystals, then we're collecting data from crystallization plates. So it's basically the world's first dedicated, fully automatic room temperature MX beamline. and it should be ideal for drug development studies and that are physiologically relevant. It's very high throughput, so we can collect well over 100 data sets per hour. We have capacity to store 1,500 crystallization plates on the beamline that are robotically loaded when we want to collect. And then there's a huge amount of effort that's gone into software development that's benefited BMXi as well as other beamlines with DARs and multiplex, so we can automate the merging of multi-crystal data from drops and all sample groups, however you want to define it, so that you can tell the beamline what you want and output your structure. A lot of what we needed to do to get this to work, to start with, you had to manually identify your crystals within these crystal plates. That was very low throughput. But recently, using machine learning approach called CHIMP, we've been able to develop a bit of software now that identifies the crystals in your plate for you. So all you have to do is say, yes, please go and collect, and it will go and collect the data for you, and as well as process, so you can see what you've got. So we've got a fragment bound for this particular protein. BMXM is the other partner beamline to BMXi, and it was designed really to work with really difficult to work with proteins. So proteins, we get very small crystals. Obviously, membrane proteins come into that quite a lot, much to my delight. And the ultimate aim is to be able to get single crystal rotation data collection from micron, submicrons, and submicron sized crystals. So for this, we have a sort of nano-focus beamline. So the focus beam itself is 0.4 by 1.3 micrometers. A defocus beam 9 by 13. Because we're working at higher energies, we have the Eiger X9M cadmium telluride detectors. There's also Pilatus 3.6M there as well. To really minimize the sort of background we get from diffraction, the samples are contained within a vacuum in the same way as I-23, although the detector is not within that vacuum. So we get a very low background, very high signal to noise ratio from the data collection. We're collecting at cryogenic temperatures, and to help with the crystal identification, we've got an integrated scanning electron microscope mounted onto the beamline itself as well. So the way we get samples onto this beamline at the moment is not in a loop, but we're using transmission electron microscopy grids. So you can see they're there. So what we're doing, we're blotting buffer onto the back of a grid, then we're applying the crystals to the front, and then we're blotting from behind to reduce that solvent content on the grid to improve signal to noise ratio before taking the crystal and loading it onto the beamline. So there's a small sample prep lab at Diamond here to help with that work. And we use the Leica GP2 plunge freezer for that. And there's an offline Joel SEM with a cryostage to help identify where the crystals are before we put them onto the beamline. So just to give you an example of some of the work that's come out of this, and this is really very recent from the end of last month. This is the first structure of a membrane protein that we've been able to solve on this beamline. So the particular protein here is the free fatty acid receptor. Sorry, excuse me. So to grow crystals for this particular protein, we're using a technique called lipidic cubic phase crystallization. And what this is growing crystals within a lipid membrane effectively. So what we produce to do this is a very viscous toothpaste-like consistency material that then is aliquoted onto a large glass plate and sealed in a batch format. So you can see here some cross-polarized images on the left of the crystals that we're growing. They're glowing here. So the size of these crystals, the biggest ones are about 5 microns, the smallest being about a micron in size. The next set of images here, you can see the crystals on the grid, these little flecks you can see within the squares. And then, just example patterns from the beamline. So from these 2 drops, we were able to mount a whole series of crystals and carried out 33 data collections from these two sets of cryo-EM grids. The resolution of these crystals, they were diffracting from between 1.1 and 2.9 angstroms across the 2 drops. And we weren't really seeing a correlation. You weren't seeing, say, the bigger crystals gave you a higher resolution. That certainly is not the case yet. We still need to investigate that further. I should also point out, to get these crystals onto these grids, the LCP, because it's like toothpaste, you can't just pipette it. So we're having to dissolve the LCP first of all using a low molecular weight PEG at high concentration or MPD, so that we can actually pipette these things. So it's possible that the MPD that we've used has led to the improvement in resolution. So when we were testing the equivalent crystals on our standard MX beamlines, we were getting diffraction between sort of 2 and 2.5. So the structures we've solved, the example in the literature that's already solved is at 2.3. And from these range of crystals from our first attempt at this, we've got a data set to about 2.3 as well. But if we had more crystals and more time, then I suspect the hope is we can push this improve the resolution by at least an angstrom, and that's what excites me right now. Okay, sorry, just give another example of some of the work that's gone at Diamond, and this is really linked with some of the COVID-19 work that happened started in early February 2020, and linked with Frank von Dalf's XChem facility that we have for fragment screening at Diamond. So this was a project that was started really early in the year. We were in contact with some Chinese groups in January, and we got the DNA for MPRO right, I think the beginning of February, I think it was. Yes, the first experiments were in February 2020, yes. So from going from cloning the constructs to getting a structure for MPRO took just over a week with the systematic systems we have in place. And then those crystals could be optimized for XChem. By the end of March, we had 1,250 fragments screened and 74 hits published already in sort of the open literature. And then a number of campaigns have happened over 2021, I think 8 in total. More have happened in 2022. And Frank is continuing this work along with Martin Walsh through COVID Moonshot initiatives and the ASAP grant they have at the moment. But as part of all this as well, Diamond stayed sort of as operations we could during the pandemic. Obviously, we were operating in remote mode, but we had specific calls out for COVID research. So between February 2020 and December 2021, we collected over 25,000 SARS-CoV data sets on MX beamlines, solving at the time 37% of all the structures that have been deposited in the PDB of SARS-CoV-2 related proteins, which is the largest contribution of any synchrotron. So apparently 27% of all structures. And it was led to sort of 50 high impact publications associated with this. You might see some, I think there's a little bit more on COVID later on for some of the other things we're doing at Diamond. One of the big things with the way we operate now is the ability to use unattended data collection at Diamond. So this has required development in the instrumentation itself. So although we've had robotics for loading pins for a long time, making sure we had good reproducibility and capacity has been essential to enable this sort of activity. But equally alongside that, we need the software support of data processing so that data can be automatically processed as well. So some of the new features that have enabled the unattended data collection we have is this X-ray centering approach that we have. So we just sort of do a scan across the loop as it's doing right now. You can see the crystal in the blue beam. We're getting, in terms of the heat map, this red area, then we're centering the loop on the most intense area on that loop, rotating it 90 degrees and doing the same with the side on, so we're not losing, the crystal won't end up being out of the beam when we're trying to collect. The idea is that we don't have to, there's no human intervention required. You don't have to center your loops now. And then we can collect a whole set of images. Now the crystal's been orientated, that can then be fed into our automatic data processing pipelines and your structure can come out the other end. So let me just move to the next slide. So this is just giving an example, again, out of the pandemic where this was really beneficial. When we couldn't have many people on the beamline space beyond one support scientist making sure the beam was operational, groups were able to mail us in pucks in dewars. They could be mounted on the beamline. And effectively, with the right information, you can just sort of press go. Massive savings in terms of manpower and time, not only for the researchers themselves, but also for our beamline scientists and staff. Nobody has to necessarily get up in the middle of the night to keep the beamline running in the same way. So this really led to sort of the rapid turnaround of these particular structures, looking at various different fabs bound to different to RBD. What else was I going to say? I think one of the other really advantage was, you didn't have to, wait till you had a full dewar before shipping the samples. Literally a couple of pucks at a time could be sent, data could be collected, that fed back, and that can inform the crystallization experience very quickly. And the turnaround of this could be within 24 hours if the shipments were quickly. So this is some of the work that came out of Dave Stewart's research group in Oxford, as well as support scientists on beamline scientists and IO3 at Diamond. Right, that's sort of MX updates. I want to move on to some of the work that's been going on in the cryo-electron microscopy field at Diamond at the moment. So this is the summary of EBIC right now, and the instrumentation we have available. We have dedicated microscopes for industrial proprietary access, but then obviously far more available for academic research. There's 4 Titan Cryuses for academic access. For tomography and in the future micro-ED sample prep, then we have access to the CryoClem, CEOS, and Aquilos. I'm currently installing a Delmic in-chamber fluorescence unit on the Aquilos right now, so we can do fluorescence on samples that are mounted that way. In terms of grid preparation and screening, then we have good facilities on the campus for doing all of this with an EBIC and the research complex at Harwell as well. So the Vitrobot and Leica GP2 systems. We also have a Chameleon user program. If you've particularly got difficult samples, then you can apply to access the Chameleon, which is a spray-on technology rather than a plunge freezing approach to preparing cryo-EM grids. Then there are 2 screening microscopes, the Talos and the Glacius 2, which belongs to the research complex. The nice thing about the Glacius 2 is we've also, through the research complex, been able to purchase, or the research complex specifically purchased a Dectra Singler detector, which hopefully will lead to micro-ED programs in the future. As with MX, there's a huge team of people that support the work that goes on within EBIC itself, whether the EM scientists themselves or the students and postdocs that run research programs alongside on with specific research questions or method development projects. And of course, the data analysis teams and the engineers behind what goes on within these teams. In terms of what you can access at EBIC, there's 4 main user access routes at the moment. There's our well-established cryo-EM single particle analysis routes. And there's an example of a transporter structure here recently published in Nature Structural Molecular Biology, bound to a fab fragment, which was solved on these mice. So we can do very small proteins. We have other really nice examples of membrane proteins that are around about 50 kilodaltons solved using cryo-EM now. So that's small proteins are certainly much more tractable a route by single particle analysis. We have established, as well as the developing cryo-electron tomography user programs, as an example from Nature Microbiology here, looking at the hibernation of ribosomes. When cells obviously have a high energy requirement, cells don't have to have the ribosomes switched on all the time. And one of the ways they do that is through this dimerization approach, which stops access to the RNA. And so they're using electron tomography. These users were able to show really nicely this dimerization approach happening within bacteria. The Chameleon electron diffraction programs are in development at the moment. So, I mean, if you have projects you think would be useful, there is a user program for accessing the Chameleon, so do get in contact. Electron diffraction, we're also interested. We've got an interesting project that we can help out with, but it's less of a defined user program right now. What is now functioning is the Leica CryoClem user program, and recently a humidity controller was added to this to help with the sample preparation. I'll mention that again in a minute. So in terms of the micro-ED, what we've been playing around with very recently, so we only got the detector earlier this year. We're following a standard grid preparation, the same way that we prepared the samples for VMXM on grids. The key thing, obviously, for micro-ED is we need very, very thin samples. The crystals need to be sub 200 nanometers thick, and that's quite difficult to get in the crystal plate right now. So we're having to fib mill these crystals so we can get thin enough samples to go on the electron microscope. And then we're collecting on the Glacius in a batch data collection, more than 100 positions, plus or minus 65 degrees is the aim with this. And then at the moment, Diamond software teams across DIALS, ZEA2 and CZ4 teams are working on sort of the processing of this data. That's all still under development right now, but the idea is to do routine protein structures better than 2 angstroms with this approach. For the CryoClem user program, this again is very new. So Ulrika established this program along with Craig. Parajit has just joined Diamond last month, and she is now taking on this program as Ulrika has now left us to go to Switzerland. But we've so far to date 2 projects that can be completed. but there's a workflow now in place to take you through the sort of sample preparation all the way through to collecting data on the Krios if required. And one of the big advances recently was adapting the Leica so that we have this humidity control chamber, and you can quite clearly see the difference in the quality of the grids here from the left to the right, where you have no humidity control to with humidity control. Going back now to sort of the synchrotron itself, B24 is, along with EBIC, as part of the biological cryo-imaging group at Diamond, led by Martin Walsh. B24 really provides that link between visible light techniques and electron microscopy. So we work quite closely with the Central Laser Facilities Octopus cluster on the campus, also based in the research complex, and they work also closely with EBIC to really enable really good workflows for researchers when you have questions that fall within this domain. So to give an example of that, this is the workflow that they're sort of following at the moment, that they've developed at the moment. So cells are prepared on a TM grid. You can use conventional fluorescence light microscopy that we have available on B24 to look at these, and then that can be fed into the cryo system. So there's a cryo structured illumination fluorescence and cryo destorm fluorescence. But equally, within the Central Laser Facility, we have other super resolution cryo systems that are available that you can also look at as well with those samples. We can then transfer those samples from the fluorescence microscopes, then same grid can then go onto the soft X-ray tomography beamline for analysis using X-ray tomography. And obviously some of the advantages here are the deeper penetration of X-rays over electrons when you're looking at these sorts of things. But equally, those grids at the fluorescence step could also go in the direction of fib milling electron tomography. So you can then, the example on the right here is where a combination of correlative multiscale cryo-imaging with soft X-ray tomography alongside electron tomography, as well as fluorescence and light microscopy approaches, but CLF, have been able to look at the sort of life cycle of SARS-CoV within the cell and look specifically at what's going on with the spike protein at different points in the viral production process. All right, so that sort of brings me to the end of the discussion about some of the work that's recently going on. Just wanted to highlight what's going on with Diamond in the future. So very recently in September, Diamond 2 funding was finally given the go-ahead. So this is going to be a really major upgrade of our machine, replacing most of the booster synchrotron in the storage room. It will enable 3 new flagship beamlines and significant upgrades to the vast majority of existing beamlines we have at the Diamond. It's going to lead to a requirement for a need to handle much more of the data, so petabytes of data at a time. So there's a massive effort going into data handling and analysis hardware and software to manage these vastly increased data rates that we're going to experience, especially from the imaging side of things. This is going to need a new Diamond extension building, which should be under construction very shortly, should be finished within the year, and several other on and off-site storage buildings, just so that we can manage the building of the new ring and minimize impact to our user program. So just to give a quick overview of what's sort of going to happen, the new design is going to be a double bend triple acromat, and that will give an order of magnitude reduction in the horizontal emittance. So we'll get a much more coherent a coherent beam. As part of this, we're also going to boost the energy from 3 to 3.5 GeV, and when working at high energies in particular, this is going to be really beneficial, especially on the MX beamlines, where in terms of the gain factor we get from working at these higher energies, really means that we get a much bigger output from what goes the crystals and so forth that go on the beamlines. The new design also introduces, I think, 24 different new straight sections onto Diamond, which gives the opportunity for new insertion devices. And we can't fit new beamlines in every place around the Diamond, but it should enable, I think, 4 or 5 new beamlines to be built within the current synchrotron building. In terms of the time frame for this is a sort of 5-year plan starting now, effort is now underway. So in terms of the project milestones, we've just been given approval. By December next year, the Diamond extension building should be complete. We're expecting, in terms of the sort of shutdown period, the dark period at Diamond, to commence in December 2027. So still a number of years away. We have a number of mitigation factors in place, especially from the point of view of MX. So we will be building a beamline at the AfPS to enable unattended data collection to support our MX communities. But it's worth also pointing out that, not everything at Diamond is on a beamline, so EBIC will still continue to be operational throughout the dark period, as well as support facilities like the membrane protein laboratory as well. We hope to have Beam back by sort of June 2029, with first phase beamlines becoming operational by September 29, first flagship beamlines by the beginning of 2030, with the project fully completed by March 2030. And you can find out more about Diamond 2 if you so wish, if you follow the QR code, there's a link at the bottom of the slide. Okay, so finally, I just wanted to finish off with a little bit on where START may head in the future from what we're thinking about at Diamond. So I know that the STFC are thinking about funding opportunities and things like that, but what START's done so far is really fantastic. There's, in terms of resourcing, training and so forth, has been brilliant. And there's even a small extension, 6-month extension as well, added to the program. But the question, I guess, is where we go next. I think one of the comments and one of the slides that Gwyndaff gave me was with additional funding, they'd be able to sustain and grow South African biosciences community and further extend that to other structural biology centres within Africa. And we should need the money to do that. So easier said than done. Having said that, there may be opportunities coming up. So part of what I do is linked with Instruct Eric, and through the Horizon European Union Horizon initiatives, they've highlighted a funding opportunity here that's really around strengthening the bilateral cooperation and research infrastructure of Africa. And specific objectives involve sort of the rapidly enhanced learning, knowledge and skills, research and innovation capacity, with specific attention to female and young researchers. And they really want to enhance research capacities in Africa, as well as cooperation between European and African research and infrastructure. And the scope of this topic really aims at fostering EU cooperation in research infrastructures, sharing the good practices and experiences, facilitating the development of a strategic approach for structuring of research infrastructure capacities at a Pan-African level. Now, one of the key things for applying for this money is you really have to base this on an existing project, and START, I think, is an excellent opportunity here to sort of take some of this forward. In terms of money available, there's 3 million euros available that will fund 2 projects. That's in terms of funding this, that's where we need to be thinking, so broadly around the 1.5 million mark. In terms of people that need to be involved, there needs to be at least 2 European infrastructures involved. So one will be Instruct Eric, one will be Diamond. With Instruct Eric, obviously that brings in the other European infrastructures that are part of the structural biology. It brings in the other structural biology infrastructures across Europe that are part of Instruct. And with that as well, the aim is Diamond will take a lead on this, but we also need African partners as well. So we've been talking with Trevor already and Emmanuel. But if this is something potentially of interest to you, then do please get in contact. We're currently in the planning stages about what we can possibly do with this. Some of the thoughts are towards providing sort of training sabbaticals across European infrastructures, or people may be going out to Africa as well to provide training as well as access to infrastructure in Europe as well, in a similar way to what was enabled through Instruct and the START program. So that brings me to the end. Sorry, I've overrun a little bit. This is my email address at the bottom here if you want to get in contact. Again, with anybody else at Diamond, we have a very simple naming system for emails. So it's our first name and our last name, so you can sort of guess what everybody's email addresses are. More information about Diamond can be found on the website. Thank you for listening. Any questions? Simon.
Yeah, thank you for the awesome talk, Andrew, and giving it also at short notice. Just on your very last point, so the African Light Source would like to participate with you in making the grants that you apply to, a much stronger application, because I think if there are more African countries involved, which we could bring in the regional African or multi-nation African aspect, and also assist in connecting to other countries in Africa, because we value the START project very, very much, and we know that diamond is a very, very good light source in terms of its availability to Africa. You're on the same time zone essentially, and we just heard the flight to Europe is very, very good for us. So I think we've had a long history together with Diamond as well. And so we'd like to build on those connections with African Light Source and also help make the applications more competitive and help with the organization from the African side. So that's what I'm offering. I really hope we can.
That sounds brilliant, frankly.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Okay, thank you. So offline, we'll make sure to do it. I see Trevor's also here. He's deeply involved with the African Light Source as well. So then I'll look forward that we do that together with Diamond.
So just to get update, we have a meeting with some of the other European infrastructures in about 2 weeks' time to see who else from Europe wants to be involved. I think if we do something similar with our African centers, then we can then bring everyone together then at that point and then get something hashed out.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Andrew. And then we now move to the last speaker because it's taking much of our time. Please, you can drop your email so that in case you want to ask you some questions, people need to contact you. Kindly drop your email in the chat board. And then the last speaker is going to be Mr. Eli Tadsala. He's going to talk about temperature and moisture triggered crystallization of a triple cation mixed halide perovskite cells to reduce phase segregation. Now over to you.
Okay, thank you, Philip. I hope you can get me. I'm just uploading my slides. Okay. Okay, just a minute. I'm uploading my slide. Once you see it, you tell me if you can see it. Okay.
Yeah, we can see.
Okay, just a minute. It started from far. Just a minute. Sorry. I'm called Mila Shatsala, and I'm going to present on temperature and moisture triggered crystallization of triple cation mixed halide perovskite cells. We are wishing to reduce phase segregation in this type of materials, and I'm presenting on behalf of a team. But here I have indicated Celine Awino, who is with me here. I'll talk about why the others are not there right now, but they are still with us in the team. Now, we come from the Department of Physics in a university called Masinde Muliro University of Science and Technology. It is found in a town called Kakamega in Kenya. And Kakamega, as you see from this slide, it is to the west of Kenya, near Uganda. And if I talk about my university, these are the photo here. Let me just get this. Shows the aerial view of our lab. And this is where we work from. This is the lab section of our university. And this, therefore, is the lab itself. This lab here is here. on a closer range. Then our university has an iconic building, which is the library here. And we also participate in sports like our rugby team is here. Right now, we are in Lawrence Berkeley National Lab in San Francisco, California. If it is zoomed up, this is the photo of Lawrence Berkeley National Lab in California, courtesy of a LAMP scholarship, LAMP sponsorship. And we are so grateful to LAMPS for making us actually come this far. Now back to business. Solar cells are usually classified into 3 generations. The PV technologies, we have the first generation solar panels, which involve the single crystalline, monocrystalline silicon. These are so dominant, and the polycrystalline. Then we have got the second generation, where we have got the amorphous silicon, CDTE, and then we have the CIGS. These ones are usually mostly used for standalone devices. Then, more so importantly, we have the third generation solar PV, which are listed here. And our interest is on the perovskite solar cell. Why perovskite? Is because perovskite solar cells have shown tremendous improvement in terms of efficiencies, and they are almost catching up with the silicon solar cells which are currently on the market. Apart from the perovskite material being used in solar cells, the perovskite material can also be used in sensors and catalyst electrodes. We also have them being used in fuel cells, in lasers, memory devices, and spintronics. But we shall talk about the solar cell application. The only issue with this material we have here is the instability. Therefore, that's why we need to, we are interested in looking at the crystallization of the material, so that we can also work on the instability issues. Now, maybe I introduce a perovskite material. A perovskite material is an ABX material, ABX3 material. ABX3 material, where A will take the cation, either methyl ammonium, form a medium, and sometimes we also have got cesium. Then the B will be either lead or tin. Then X will be a halide, which is either iodide, bromide, or chloride. Now, in the processing of the salt solution, the first, which is a mature and predominant perovskite, is the methyl ammonium lead iodide 3, which has got an energy gap of 1.5 electron volts. It has got a long diffusion range, which makes it a good material for solar application. But in research, people have done a lot on this material, where they have tried to change this energy gap, what we call the tuning of the energy gap, by introducing a combination of the halides. Here they have combined iodine with bromine to change the energy gap, just to increase the working and the performance of the perovskite here. And also because of the stability issues, we introduced, people have introduced cesium in this structure. Cesium has got a small ionic radius, which now causes some stability in this material. Now, why are we motivated to do this work? We are motivated to do crystallization because it has not been understood well so far in the perovskites. Most of the perovskite researchers have emphasized on the efficiencies, which they have done so well. And also what also makes crystallization of perovskites not to be so common is because of the difficulty in measuring critical nucleus sizes in the ranges of 100 to 1,000 atoms. But thanks God to the cyclone radiations, which techniques, X-ray techniques, which allow us to do this type of measurements. And they usually give us the information about the inner film morphology. And we thank God that this idea is also coming to Africa, where we come from. Now, that information will give us the sizes, the shapes, distances, and correlation of particles, which are very important. They are fundamental in understanding the nucleation and the growth of the films we are going to be making, and the solar cells, actually. This brings us to our research question, the question we need to address. What is the influence of heat stress and moisture probing on the crystallization kinetics of the triple cation mixed halide perovskite cell? We thought of the triple cation mixed halide perovskite cell because so far it has shown remarkable efficiencies, and also the stability is slightly better than any other formation. Now, this work will be done in the GWAX and GSAX beamlines and the microdiffraction with optical microscopy through photoluminescence techniques. And we intend to have it as in situ, to do in situ and static measurements. Now, where are we going to do this? As we said, okay, we are going to do it at Berkeley. Okay, the preparation of our perovskite film, it's simple. These white perovskites are becoming known, and they're becoming a topic of the day, is because of the simple preparation techniques. So we shall have this salt, cesium iodide, methyl ammonium iodide, formamidinium iodide, and lead iodide, and lead iodide and lead bromide mixed in the stoichiometric ratios. Then we dissolve them in a DMF, and DMSO in the ratios of 4:1, that is 800 mils to 200 mils. Then we shall make them overnight we shall mix them overnight at a temperature of 60 degrees in a nitrogen glow box. These are nitrogen glow box that we shall be using. We have been using in our lab. We call it the MUST Materials Research Lab, where MUST stands for Masinde Muliro University of Science and Technology. Then these are the precursor solutions. Then after making the precursor solution, we shall clean our substrate, and mostly we use the ITO substrate. Then we shall get 100 mils of the precursor solution and drop it on the ITO substrate, which has been placed on a spin coater. Then we spin coat it for around 30 seconds. Now, this stage here, when we have spin coated this film at this stage, it will be yellow in color. That will will give us the yellow face of the precursor of the film of the perovskite. Then, for us to change it to a solar cell phase, which can absorb light, then we need to do something called annealing. So we can anneal this by placing it on a hot plate. Then we shall be placing it on a hot plate at around 150 degrees for around 10 to 15 minutes. Then when we anneal at that time, it will turn into a dark phase, it will become black. This dark phase is the perovskite phase, and it is usually cubic. Now, the problem we have here is that this perovskite phase, which is cubic, it can easily turn into back into the yellow phase, which is not a perovskite phase, if you administer, if it is it's probably with temperature and moisture. Now, we intend to characterize that work, therefore, and see how temperature and moisture will affect it. We shall do it at LBNL, or the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, or the Advanced Light Source. And we shall use the SAX GWAX measurement or techniques. The beamline is 7.33. We shall also use microdiffraction beamline, which is 12.32. There is another beamline here, which we are still learning, which is 12.02 coherent X-ray scattering. If it will be helpful, we shall be able to see. Then the beamline GSAX, which we shall use, is this. This is the GSAX beamline. I'm just mentioning a few. This is where the stage where we shall place our sample here. Then it will be we shall probe an X-ray from this point, and we shall be able to scan our film from here and see how it behaves. The conditions and the conditions for the experiment are actually stated. Again, we shall also use the microdiffraction. We shall also use the microdiffraction techniques of measurement, or the beamline 12.32, and then also it has been stated here. Now, in testing the sample, we are going to use a custom-built multi-model spin coater, and this spin coater here, it has got an embedded heater inside here. And at this point, we shall place our substrate at the our sample at this point. Then, after placing it there, we shall close. We shall put this chamber here on top here. Then we shall airtight it, close it tightly. Then these ports are the ones we shall introduce our auxiliary inputs. Our auxiliary inputs include the moisture and any other PL measurements and so on. So like this one here is the moisture one. Now, in our preliminary testing, we put it on the stage here. After assembling this, we put it on this stage here. Then we connected our humidity, and then our temperature is also going to be there. The heater is embedded inside. Then we run this system using a LabVIEWer interface on our computer, so we can be able to observe what is happening on our film from this window here. Now, if I zoom it, we can see the film at this point. Then we have our X-ray scanning it actually. Now, the results we anticipate to get, we shall have the GWAX maps. We shall also, where we have peaks that are going to be depicted at every point to see if the film is a perovskite, how the perovskite will withstand temperature, will withstand moisture, or if it is going to dissociate into other components or other phases. This is actually what has been performed in the same beamline by Aiden and Kofen Aiden, and he works closely with us. Then these maps are going to be changed into QSpace, what we expect to get from our film, because we are dealing with 3D perovskite, we expect that at 1, we shall get a peak. And that peak will now demonstrate that we have got a 100 phase 3D perovskite. And if we have another peak at around 1.4, then it will give us a 3D 110 perovskite. And if you have another peak at 1.7, it will give us another perovskite phase. And if we get a peak at 0.9 or any other point, then at 0.9 it will show that the film has gone back into the lead form. So it's no longer a perovskite film. It has degraded with the temperature and moisture. So we had our samples from our lab, which we came with. Unfortunately, this material is very unstable, and because of the bureaucracy, somebody said, of visa and so on, and delays. So we took some time before we tested this sample. So when we arrived with it, it degraded a bit. You see the color has changed from the dark color, and it is turning back into yellowish, which is signaling some degradation. So we still went ahead and did some measurements, which are preliminary measurements to see how the film behaves. So we placed it in the G-Sax and it decolorized like this. So we are going to present a photo of our results, because we are yet to get the authorization to download the result because of the few user agreement issues and so on. So I'll request that you bear with me. I'll just present a photo of what we got. So this phase, this at 1, we expected to get a peak at 1 and at 1.4, so that it can tell us that this was a perovskite film that formed. Unfortunately, this perovskite film, if you can see it, it is actually gone down. But the one which has come up is the one which was at 0.9. It shows that our perovskite film has degraded back into lead iodide. So it shows that temperature affects that perovskite film. Now, why are we interested in this is because we want to optimize the film formation, the perovskite formation temperature and humidity, so that we can produce films that can be stable for some time, and we can use them for commercialization of the perovskite, which is almost phasing out the silicon technology. Here with the Celine in the G-Sax, we are still around here. We are going to do work in the lab. I want to thank Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, because from our work, we got into another department called Molecular Foundry. They got interested in this work, therefore they have allowed us to make films in the Molecular Foundry. And this work has attracted many people. We have also, it has attracted Fast Solar. Fast Solar has also come into this work. They are interested in this work because they are developing perovskite films. And we thank our Molecular Foundry for coming in to help us to develop more films. Okay, in general, the acknowledgements, I want to acknowledge AfLS, AfPS, and ICTP, especially LAMS, for making our trip here. Then I want to thank Chen Hui. He was supposed to be one of our authors, but he said because many people are now incorporated in this work, so he becomes cited as an acknowledgement. Nobu Michu also, and Caroline from the Molecular Foundry. I want to say, if you check the data the files that I've attached, we have brochures and slides on Molecular Foundry. They asked me to present them here, so I've attached them so that they're interested in the work we are doing in Africa, and as African Light Source, they will want to partner with us. Having said that, I want to thank you all for listening to me. I will request my colleague, if she has something she can also mention.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm Celine Awina from Masindo Mulero University. We work with Mela here at LBNL. Yeah, I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And if there is any question, we are.
Thank you, Emily. Yeah. Any questions from colleagues? Because I know it takes some of the time, but if there's any question, 1 or 2 questions. All right. I do not see any question in the chat, but I strongly believe that we do appreciate the kind of work you are doing, and then the way you are building the group, the research group as well, is commendable. So, and I hope working together with the African Light Source, we continue to at least to benefit from one another and to share the
Thank you.
ideas.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah. All right. Because of the time, we just want us to have a 5 minutes so that we can have the final session followed by the closing ceremony. So let's just have a 5 minutes. Yeah. Is that okay? Lawrence, 5 minutes break? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And I hope Eddie is around. I hope he's around as well. Let's see. Edward. I hope he's around. Okay, just 5 minutes, then we come back. I just want to raise gifts there. Just for me to be assured.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay. Nice to.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, so can I just upload my presentation?
Yeah, there's no problem. You can upload it, so then later I will call you to start. Yeah, you can just put it on the screen. It's fine. All right, I think we can start now for our final session. So you're welcome to the final session, and I would like to invite the next plenary speaker, that's the person of Dr. Gift Melana. He'll be talking about the AFCA introduction, update, and working toward the African license. Over to you.
Okay, thank you very much for the kind introduction. And of course, I also want to take this opportunity to thank the organizing committee for inviting AFCA to give a talk at this conference. As you are aware, we are the African Crystallographic Association, and one of our aims is to contribute to the advancements of crystallography and all related science, and as well as to promote African cooperation in crystallography and related areas. We also want to develop education and research in crystallography as well as structural science in Africa. And for us to achieve that, I think you may be aware that in November 2021, the African Crystallographic Association was launched. This was during an online event. And what you see on this slide is the executive. And of course, this executive is headed by the president, who is from South Africa, Professor Dilia Haynes, Patrice from Cameroon, the vice president, of course, myself, who is speaking today, Gift Mekana from Zimbabwe, I am the secretary. So we are driving crystallography on the continent, and we want to promote crystallography across the African continent by, of course, supporting researchers working in areas of crystallography and structural science. So for us to achieve this, we have divided the African continent into different regions. We have region 1 up to region 5, donated by those colors that you see on that map. In these regions, each region is has a rep or a representative who sits in the AFCA executive. And these representatives, they organize activities across their region. And of course, they also report to the AFCA executive. Some of the things that we promote on the African continent is to have crystallography societies across Africa. And as you can see here, the areas which are shaded in dark colors, they represent associations or crystallography associations. For example, we have a very strong association in Morocco, Algeria, Egypt, Cameroon, and South Africa. You will also notice that during my talk, we also have other countries such as Senegal, the Cote d'Ivoire, the Democratic Republic of Congo that are also working towards having crystallography societies to drive the agenda for the African Crystallographic Association. So some of the activities that have been taking place to promote crystallography include open labs. And these open labs were carried in different countries across the continent. But of course, in 2019, when COVID struck, we had challenges in carrying out these open labs. And of course, the concept of the AfFramed project that I'm going to introduce in the following slides was discussed in France in 2022. So the background of this AfFramed project, basically, it is an ambitious project for the development of crystallography in Africa. The whole idea of this project is to use diffractometer that you operate remotely while you're in Africa. And this AfFramed project was launched by the chair of the International Union of Crystallography in Africa initiative, Prof. Lukomende. And of course, this AfFramed project is financed for 5 years. That is from 2022 during its inception up to 2026 by the National Center for Scientific Research. The whole idea is to help African researchers whose field of research depends on crystallography, and to train at least 15 national representatives, and at least 15 African countries should be involved by the end of this project. At its inception in 2022, 6 countries were represented, including the Africa president, Professor Delia was also there in France, in Nancy. And of course, the African researchers were trained on selecting the suitable crystal, mounting it on a diffractometer, centering it, data collection, data reduction, and of course, solving the structure and refining. They were also introduced to crystallographic theory, just for them to have a basic understanding of what crystallography is all about. So this is something that we think, like I said, it's very ambitious, but it's something that we think a lot of researchers across the African continent will benefit if they were to participate in this kind of project. Like I said, it will run from 2022 up to 2026. And only up to now, I think we had the Inception program, which was launched in 2022. And like I said earlier on, six people from 6 different countries were involved. So we are simply targeting a minimum of 15, at least 15 national representatives, and a minimum of 15 African countries to be involved in this. So if anyone who is working in this area of crystallography who is interested in doing these remote experiments, whereby you send your crystals to an institution in France, which is involved in the AfFramed project. And of course, the crystal will not be mounted by people in France. And then what we simply do is now to operate the diffractometer from your lab in Africa. So the whole idea is to make sure that we have a lot of crystallographers in Africa, teachers and students also being involved in this kind of project. Each participant or each country is given at least 100 hours for this kind of project to work on the diffractometer remotely, and of course, to do data collection, data reduction, and of course, to solve the crystal structures from your crystals. I'm also happy to tell you that AfPS is now officially a regional associate of the International Union of Crystallography. Sometime this year, the president attended the IUCR Congress and outlined the history of Africa and some of the activities that we are currently doing in Africa to promote crystallography. This was well received by the General Assembly, and as a result of that, Africa was accepted into the IUCR as a regional associate. So we want to maybe congratulate ourselves for this milestone, because it marks some important steps towards promoting science, especially crystallography, on the African continent. To celebrate this acceptance of Africa as an IUCR regional associate, the journals of IUCR are going to publish an AFCA virtual collection, which will showcase some of the work that is being done in Africa, which is related to crystallography. Like I said at the beginning of my talk, that our aim as AFCA is to promote crystallographic activities or crystallographic science on the African continent. We have been driving a number of activities on the African continent. As you can see, the area there that is shaded in green, that is Morocco. They recently had the crystallographic school in 2023, which was basically looking at aspects of crystallography, introducing the theory of crystallography, diffractometers, solving crystal structure, interpreting powder data, which we believe is very vital in promoting crystallography on our continent. In Algeria, there was also some workshop in 2022 on remote measurement. They also organized a congress which took place this year. And I'm happy to tell you that in 2025, we are going to have the Pan-African Conference on Crystallography #4, which will take place in Algeria. So all those who are interested, please look out for our advertisements, which will be coming through our social media platforms as well as our website. We are also going to post some information on the IUCR website with regards to this conference. So at the moment, I think the Congress which took place in 2023 in Algeria was just some kind of some preparation in terms of how they are going to run the PCR4, which will take place in 2025. So I want to take this opportunity to invite everyone who will be interested to take place to participate in this conference. In Tunisia, there have also been some activities taking place. The powder diffraction school took place in 2022. And in Mauritania, an open lab in November. Egypt is very active when it comes to issues to do with the crystallography. A number of activities are taking place in 2022 as well as 2023. In 2023, at the beginning of this year, the Pan-African Conference on Crystallography 3 was held in Nairobi, which I was privileged to attend. It was a very useful conference. We also had a workshop on powder diffraction data, which was organized by the International Center for Diffraction Data. And of course, the Cambridge Structural Database, they also had a workshop teaching students and early career researchers on how to explore this database and how it can be used to discover drugs or to synthesize new compounds. I'm also happy to tell you that Senegal has made very important strides towards promoting crystallography. They launched the Senegalese Crystallographic Association on the 12th of March 2022, and a lot of activities are taking place. So Senegal joins countries like South Africa, Egypt, Morocco, and Algeria, who has had this crystallography association for a number of years. In Guinea is also very close to Senegal, so our representative in that region, they also moved to Guinea to try and teach crystallography to different universities, to schools, and to explain the importance of crystallography in that country. So an open lab on powder diffraction was held in September in Guinea. Benin is also a very important country when it comes to crystallographic activities in Africa. Very strategic. They have what we call the Tech lab training, which took place in November 2022. For your own information, Benin has a lot of diffractometers or equipment that is needed for crystallography. This equipment is not necessarily for Benin only, but anyone in Africa who feels like they want to use diffractometers, like single crystal diffractometers, powder diffractometers, they are free to approach those who are in charge of these diffractometers in Benin. If anyone is interested, they can contact us at AFCA, and then we'll give them the relevant details. So there was a training session in Benin in 2023, which coincided with the installation of a new powder diffractometer. So they have quite a number of equipment which they use for their X-step lab training. So if you are interested, you can get in touch with those in Benin. They will be able to assist you. Like I said, the equipment that is in Benin is open to all those who are in Africa to use those equipment. Cameroon has also been very active, or those in that region, because they have been carrying a number of activities. But of course, the Cameroon Crystallography Association is planning to have a school of crystallography before the end of the year next year. Gabon, a lot of activities have also been taking place. They organized Open Lab in remote modes in May, and it was well received and attended by a number of candidates across the African continent. The Republic of Congo, they have an open lab in May, and in this case, some researchers from France were in Congo to teach crystallography, as well as solving crystal structures, and of course, data interpretation. Sometime this year in April, there was a powder diffraction conference which took place in Namibia. A lot of companies involved in mining, universities in Southern Africa, they attended this conference. In South Africa, we also organized the first Stellenbosch Introductory Crystallograph School, which took place in 2023. So all these activities that we're carrying across the continent, activities of Africa which are meant to promote crystallography. It's only the beginning, and we hope that everyone is going to support us, including the African governments, including our collaborators in Europe, in America, and other parts of the world, so that we achieve the mandate that we said we want to achieve when it comes to crystallography. So thank you very much once again for giving me this opportunity to just take you through to some of the activities that we are carrying out in Africa as part of promoting crystallography on the continent. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gift. I see that at least you are really on the right track, and I'm so happy and proud of the work you guys are doing. I'm really happy that it's spread across the whole geographical zone of the African continent, which is what really make it so super. So colleagues, you have any question to ask if you have any question, probably chat. They want to just make some inquiry or some advice, feel free to answer, to ask him.
Yes, this is Kem. Can I?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, Kem, can you? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much for that presentation. Just a quick overview question here. The map you show of the continent at the beginning, indicating locations of where these associations are located. Do you have clarity that that map is comprehensive, that those are the few countries that have this association or are organized as such?
Oh, sorry, can you come again? I think I missed your question.
The map of the continent that you on either your first or second slide, indicating countries that have crystallographic associations. Do you have a sense if that map is comprehensive and that's all that exists on the continent?
Yeah, so thank you very much. So basically, we have tried to cover all the countries on the African continent. There were some issues with regards to which countries, for example, go into region 4. There were issues with especially with the Senegal, were they in region 4 or in region 1? So those are some of the issues that we had at the beginning. But I can confidently say we covered most of the countries that are in Africa, as you can see by those demarcated areas with the different colors. And like I said, these countries or each region has its own representative. So the representative, they normally sit in the executive, and they always give feedback and activities that are done in their respective countries. But we also take note that there are other countries which are not very active when it comes to trying to promote crystallography or move with the crystallography. They don't even know what crystallography is all about. I will tell you, for example, before one of our representatives moved to Guinea, they didn't know anything about crystallography. They were very mesmerized. And our representative, they had to explain the importance of crystallography, the application of crystallography, and of course, gave some talks on crystallography and gave some introductory lectures on this particular subject. So we still have a lot of work to do as Africa in terms of trying to move crystallography in the continent. But I can safely say, if you see the area that is highlighted in yellow, it's crystallography there it's highly developed in areas Egypt, Libya, Algeria, Morocco. If you move down here to Southern Africa, you have South Africa. It's well established. But if you look at countries like Zimbabwe and Botswana, they do have diffractometers, but the activities are not that much. Crystallographic activities are not that much. So this is where Africa comes in and try to support researchers in these regions. But of course, the other areas, for example, the Democratic Republic of Congo, yeah, I think something is done, but countries like South Sudan, there's still a lot of work to do in those areas. Thank you. I'm not sure if I answered you correctly.
Yeah, almost. Please just back up one slide or two. Can you back up one slide or two? One more.
That's the last one. The first one, sorry.
Oh, okay. All right, maybe I missed it. There was the map that showed. So what you're saying here is that this is where the associations exist. They're organized.
Yes,
but elsewhere there might be. Yeah, that exactly. So this is where the society exists, but elsewhere they might have individual disparate activities here, but they're not quite organized into associations and networks that promote the field.
Yes, that's very correct. Yes, that's very correct. But so if you see these darker areas that are shaded like Morocco, Algeria, Egypt, there's Cameroon and South Africa. These ones have well-established crystallographic associations. But recently we have Senegal, which launched its association. There's also Cote d'Ivoire, they launched their association, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. In other countries, there are crystallographic activities taking place, like I showed at the end of my presentation, but we do not yet have crystallograph societies in these countries. And one of our aims is to make sure that these countries, they also establish their societies. For example, I'll give you an example. If, for example, you do not have a lot of people working on crystallography, you can have maybe Botswana and Zimbabwe working together to establish a crystallography association, Zambia and Angola working together. That is very much possible. But I know crystallographic activities are taking place, as I have shown you, in most parts of our African continent, but there's still a lot of work to do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Sekasi. Can you quickly, because of the last talk?
Yes. Okay, so I noticed there's not much going on in Angola, Mozambique, and I've always been concerned about the fact when all of these Pan-African initiatives, the Portuguese-speaking parts of the continent seem to be overlooked. So I would like to encourage you to bring in someone from one of those Portuguese-speaking countries to join your board, to get them more engaged. I don't know the history of that, but I've been working in Africa for over 2 decades, and I've worked with many from English-speaking, French-speaking, but Portuguese-speaking, no. So I would just like to encourage more engagement with them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will definitely take that up and see how best we can engage these countries that we have highlighted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Gift. And I hope we can drop your email for people to, in case they still have some advice and another thing. And I hope we talk after the conference, whenever I'm very move closer to your country, then it's fine. We talk much about Zimbabwe, Botswana. Yeah, about it later. All right. I think because of the time, we would like to call our last speaker for today, which is going to be Dr. Carolina. And he'll be talking about the title of his talk today, the importance of SP diffraction for the economic and industrial development of Latin American society. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Do you hear me well?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much for the invitation. My name is Carolina Santa Cruz Perez. I am a science officer of the International Science Council, coordinating the regional focal point for Latin America and the Caribbean. And I am based in Colombia. I worked for 20 years in the Brazilian Synchrotron Light Laboratory. And I'm going to share my screen. Please confirm if you are seeing it. So I can start.
Yes. Yeah.
Great.
Put it in there. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm trying to put the wider screen. Just a sec. Great. So I would like to start saying that there is a context for thinking about the creation of a new synchrotron in Latin America and the Caribbean. And there is a context to explain that a synchrotron is not just a synchrotron light laboratory, but more like a regional research center. So I'm going to focus on the Brazilian case, explaining the operational justification for large research centers, and go into what it would be our regional scientific priorities that must be aligned with these regional research centers, and what are the opportunities for action for the Latin American and Caribbean scientific community. So I would like to start saying that we know from the last United Nations General Assembly and from the previous reports produced to see how much have we advanced on the SDGs, and is definitely that we need an urgent response from the global scientific community. And when we are speaking about the global scientific community, mostly after COVID, that means that we need to be integrated into scientific priorities, regional action plans that allows us to move more with more agility towards the global agendas. So we know from an old report before the pandemics that countries in Latin America and the Caribbean were already in a lag when we think about SDGs, and that means that this lag in the advancement of the global this global agenda is also related with GDP per capita. Now we have here strongest countries by that period, but maybe the situation has not improved in the last years, considering the pandemic and the general crisis that we are passing through. So we see that even though some countries can show a bit of advance on a couple of ODS, the general tendency is that we are in a critical lag, and all those countries show that the lag is more critical in the ODS 9, which is industry and innovation and mostly infrastructure. So we see that the R&D expenditure in the lag region must be increased, and what we have seen is an opposite tendency. So the investment is in science and technology is decreasing, and I would like to mention what was the Brazilian bet since 1997, 20 years ago, when they thought and they idealized the construction of the first Brazilian synchrotron light laboratory, which now has turned into a very robust regional research center, and now they have a second ring accelerator, which is Sirius. So I'm going to start speaking about an area which is one of my specialties. I am biophysicist, and I worked for several years in the Brazilian synchrotron light laboratory on X-ray crystallography. And just to say again that these centers have aligned their actions on the national priorities. And when we speak national in Brazil, we mean continental, because they are huge. They have a big population, and that nation has focused on science and innovation being carried out in these centers. And those priorities can be related with Amazonian biodiversity, with human health, with the building of the second ring accelerator that I just said, it is serious, working on COVID-19 related projects, superconductivity, making a tour around the country to promote the CNPM, which is the National Center for Research in Energy and Materials, building new laboratories for maximum biological contention, and so on. So this work of 20 years in growing this important research center has produced a growing number of publications and in works that are far from being simple or easy. They have acquired scientific maturity to produce very innovative projects inside the center. All of them are published in a weekly basis on the magazine that is sponsored by the most robust funding agency in the region, which is AfPS, and it operates in Sao Paulo. And all of this work has produced very interesting numbers. And those numbers are related with open facilities. No, they have received so far 70,200 researchers from outside the laboratory. They have a very strong department in research and development, and that has allowed more than 2,000 associated publications. They offered support for innovation to corporate partnerships, so they have more than nearly to 100 partnerships with companies. And of course, they develop training, educational, extension, and dissemination. And that means they have trained more than 4,000 researchers. And that has allowed to produce transversal competences. And that means that they have worked not only in the production of particle accelerators, but also in developing science with synchrotron light and synthesis of new products, bioimaging, engineering and scientific instrumentation, data theory and science, nanoscale characterization, micro and nanofabrication, and that has allowed them to concentrate on health, renewable energy, and renewable materials. So I'm going to emphasize that they have acknowledged to build not a synchrotron-like laboratory, but a regional research center. And within the center, they have other sub-centers, like, let's call it like this. In Brazil, they call it laboratories, but those laboratories are really robust. One of them is the Brazilian Synchrotron Light Laboratory, which has the ring accelerators. They have also, beside, another center which is called Brazilian Biosciences National Laboratory, in which they work with innovation to solve challenges in the Brazilian health system. They have a third one called Brazilian Renewables National Laboratory, in which they work with bioethanol. As you know, Brazil is almost well, is a pioneer in the moving of more than 40% of their transportation with ethanol. The fourth one is the Brazilian Nanotechnology National Laboratory, in which they produce nanoscience, technology, and innovation for sustainable development. And finally, they are working on an alumni School of Science, in which they work with multidisciplines and disruptive undergraduate courses in science, technology, and innovation. So these facilities are open to the public, the general public, and they have series in which they are regular calls to use their facilities, also the Laboratory of Biosciences, biorenewables, and also nanotechnology. So in this first center, they have, as I said, the ring accelerator, the particle ring accelerator. And within this center, they have Laboratory of Microscopic Samples, Laboratory of Environmental Sciences, Extreme Thermodynamic Conditions Laboratory, In Situ Growth Laboratory, Laboratory of Cryogenic Preparations, and Chemical Laboratory. So it's great that if you are a worker in this place, you can also interact with multidisciplinary teams that are working just beside you in these other facilities. Now the second laboratory, okay, but in the synchrotron light laboratory, they have several scattering sources, circular dichroism, spectroscopy, micro and nanospectroscopy, of course, X-ray diffraction, and all of these lines are in constant maintaining and open to the public, as I said. So the second one is the Brazilian Bioscience National Laboratory, and within it is the facility for practicing crystallization of micromolecules, also building capacities in mass spectrometry, in nuclear magnetic resonance and spectroscopy and calorimetry. The third one has facilities for biophysics of micromolecules, high performance sequencing, metabolomics, bioprocess developmental, and scale-up. And in the last one, they have microscopy, spectroscopy and light scattering, device manufacturing, material synthesis, and nanotoxicology and nanosafety. So as you see, really robust, and it allows to grow on the number of people that is working inside this big regional research center. Until 2022, the number of workers is growing. So it means these research centers are economically productive for the country, producing employments, and those employments are mostly focused on mid-career scientists. They can be in the engineering or chemistry or physics, but also they are professionals in biological sciences and others. And they can work in the several laboratories in the managing activity or scientific or as a specialist, or as professionals or technicals. We have also that they put a lot of energy in forming the new generation of scientists, national scientists as well. So the number of interns at superior level and technical level is also has been growing during the last years. All of them, they have fellowships, national fellowships, and all those national fellowships are distributed into postdocs, students in the doctoral level, master, scientific initiation, technical training, and other modalities. They have been growing in the number of proposals, scientific proposals as well, and that has benefited a lot of people that well, until before the pandemic, it was in a growing tendency. and they are recovering after COVID. So Sirius now has 8 lines of diffraction, 100 proposals, 300 researchers, 56 institutions at national level engaged. And they have also very high engagement with other countries with they establish international collaboration, scientific collaboration. If we think about the external users of these facilities, and with externals, we are focused on the Latin American scientific community. Those numbers are also reaching the 400 external users, with a growing impact factor on the publications, and the internal community is also very productive when they are using the facilities and in terms of publications. The agreements in research and development are focused on the areas of biochemistry, genetics, molecular biology, engineering, material sciences, physics, astronomy, medicine, immunology, and microbiology, and multidisciplinary. And we see that a lot of companies are working together with these research centers, focus on the areas of renewable energy, pharmacy, gas and oil, green chemistry, advanced materials, methods, and devices. So we see also that they produce a lot of scientific events, and those are great opportunities to communicate what they're doing and starting approaching to show governments how important is science and technology for the economic growth of the country. They have a growing number of projects for capacity building, and that capacity building has been spread to other countries, as well as you see a very big list of countries which have been building capacity inside these facilities. And that building of capacities is very well distributed among women's and men's, which is a very nice point to consider when we are integrating multidisciplines and programs of capacity building, because it's very well equilibrated, and all of them are in the doctorate level, master, graduation, and in superior education. So I would like to mention that there is a need for our countries in Latin America and the Caribbean to identify which are our scientific priorities, because those need to be aligned with the funding agencies, and the funding agencies promoting those projects or related with the scientific priorities within regional centers. In our case, we can consider that Latin America and the Caribbean is the lungs of the world, that we also need to focus on the digital transformation. And one of our priorities in the region is disaster risk reduction. So the use of technology for preventing disasters is definitely a priority. We also need to approach science into politics and to be more influential to produce scientific advice in our countries. We also need to increase the communication among the academy, the private sector, and the public sector, and this interaction need to be improved, can be improved through regional centers. And finally, we need to build infrastructure in order to strengthen our scientific structure. So I think we have ahead these challenges which can be addressed through the building of regional research centers, and that is improving the integration and communication between the LAC community and scientific community, because we are not still very well integrated, and we need to start speaking the same language, focus on the same regional scientific priorities. We need also to increase the scientific infrastructure in order to call attention and call the opportunities for people to build capacities in frontiers areas of the science. We need to build capacity in scientific advice so we can increase the visibility to policymakers and influence the production of policies based on evidence. And finally, we need to use better science diplomacy processes to promote high quality science in our countries. So in terms of science advice, we keep working on formal and informal ways of doing scientific advice, but we are still not be read by our governments. So we need to produce more reports, readable reports and recommendations that can be produced at global level, but written by scientists from the region. Reports with recommendations that bring our voices, the voice of the Latin American scientific community and the global scientific community to the most important political forums. We need to learn better how to produce policy briefs, and that can allow future new agreements. We need to align with the funding agencies as well, because in several of our countries, we have ministries of science and technology taking care of managing the funds for science and technology. But that means not always we are not following the best practices of the Global Research Council, and we are not aligned on what the region needs to be funded. So maybe we belong to the World Data System. We are following the new rules for open science, but we have low affiliation to databases and repositories. We don't have it open to the LAC community, and we are still learning how to regulate open science in the region. But we have several funding agencies which are very robust in the region that can teach ministries of science and technology how to distribute better resources instead of giving them to individuals, maybe following the examples of funding agencies which has a lot of experience. AfPS has 60 years of experience in building this kind of a structure that serves to have all of these people working inside research centers and being paid for studying and receiving their titles. And very interesting programs at national level to build infrastructure, to communicate better with the society and with governments, and making our publications more reachable. So I think they are thinking about everything, and we should follow these good examples. As I was saying, platforms and databases need to be more reachable to the scientific community. That can allow us to integrate better among us as well, because here's where the whole information must be gathered. We have a few initiatives to integrate the Latin American and Caribbean community by individuals. We in the International Science Council want to make it at organizational level, because most of the libraries of researchers comes from funding agencies, and these databases are private. So I would like to end my presentation saying that regional research centers are definitely a strategy for integration of the Latin American Caribbean scientific community, is an instrument for the building of our countries, for economical growth, industrial growth, and it is a strategy also to giving opportunities to the scientific diaspora to come back to our countries and keep building what we are pursuing. So I will be very happy to answer the questions that might appear. I have some messages from previous presentations during this event which we can emphasize. So hopefully next year we can gather again in Brazil to speak about all these issues and see which are the synergies or the similarities that we find among regions. No, this is Latin America and the Caribbean together with Africa. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Carolina. Really appreciate the talk and for even giving us the time, the time to talk to us about your region there. It's commendable. Does anybody have just a question, because it's already out of time to ask the speaker, or if there's anyone you can drop in the chat just for me to see. I think just from Trevor, whether you're coming to the ISC meeting in Pretoria next month. Any questions or any something for me? Oh, okay, I think there's no
there's a question in the
other
chat.
question. I'll just okay.
It's I guess it's about the ISC meeting in Pretoria next month. Will you be attending that?
Not in Pretoria, but next year we're going to have the Global Knowledge Dialogue Latin American version. We had it in Africa at the end of 2022 in Cape Town. And this year we had the Global Knowledge Dialogue Asia Pacific version in Kuala Lumpur. So we are very looking forward to receive you all in the Latin American version of this important opportunity in which Paris is coming to the regions and is emphasized in the importance of integration in a single global voice. So I'm very, very happy to connect with you, and whichever is your question about the ISC and the ISC presence in all of our regions, please let me know.
The ISC office in Africa is reopened, or still to reopen? Is it happening, or?
Yes, the ISC is focusing now on the regional presence, establishing regional focal points. The Latin American, the Caribbean regional focal point was the first, and then now we have it is centered in the Colombian Academy of Science. So that is why I am based in Bogota. The Asia Pacific regional focal point is based in the Australian Academy of Science, and in Africa, we have an agreement with Future Africa.
Understood. I think it makes sense to engage with the ISC, and actually, I had a spreadsheet on how each of the adhering unions can support the African Light Source Project, even the social science ones. There's a International Union of Legal Science or something like that, because a lot has to go to the law and politics of multinational cooperation.
Definitely. The ISC is definitely advancing on the multilateral system, and that allows us in the regional presence of the ISC to be more engaged with these processes, more engaged with the United Nations General Assemblies, bringing our voice through participation on reports and recommendations that are being produced by ISC in collaboration with several other important partners as WHO, AFAO, United Nations, of course, and as you know, the ISC concentrates membership of nearly 300 organizations. Most of them are national academies of science, also international scientific unions and other organizations. As you said, in the natural and the social sciences, there has been an emphasis on including the social sciences, because that represents our voice, our scientific voice. That is why we are insisting on integrating through the regional presence of the ISC. So whatever I can do to connect you with the regional focal points of the ISC, please let me know.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, I will not generally contact you and try to drop your email address, and in case you want to take it up from there, we still have some things to discuss with you offline. All right. We are now come toward the end of the session, as well as toward the end of the conference, and we now move to the stage of a. Okay, Galileo, want to say something before
Yes. Yes, I would like to make to ask a question to Carolina. Yesterday, at the end of my talk, I stressed the importance of coordination between different regions of the world, and I suggested that LAMP, the organization which has been supporting what LAMP is, may play a major role for this. I wonder whether a joint venture between LAMP and ISC may be useful for a purpose of this kind.
Yes, Galileo, I think.
Could I just make a comment? Actually, LAMP was started by the ISC. It was started by ICSU before it merged with the social sciences part and became the ISC. So LAMP, in a sense, is already collaborating because we owe our very existence to the ISC. But you're right. I'll let Carolina, answer more detail.
Thank you to both of you, Galileo and Sekazi. I think the ISC is very keen to increase the dialogue, increase the discussions around those initiatives that we have started as organizations and communities in our countries and regions, but now in a more integrated fashion. No, I think the regional presence has been very important to hear the needs of the regions and put those needs into discussions in the way of webinars, workshops, panels that are being useful to produce proceedings, and those proceedings are very good content to write about what do we need and how can we integrate better in order to advance. So definitely the ISC is very happy to support. It is doing it through the regional offices, and we can discuss with the ISC, sit down on the table and think together with the experts of our scientific community, bringing also the voices of the early career, mid-career scientists, because they are those who are inside the laboratories and feeling better, know what the needs, the more urgent needs are in our countries, and how can we improve the way we communicate with those who are responsible for improving the capacities and the possibilities that we have. No, with that, I am referring to our governments and to the resources that we have available. I think we have a lot to talk about how to improve the way we administrate the funds that we have. Sometimes it is more related with the strategy than to asking for more. Sometimes it's related with networks, or most of the time related with networks. So I think these initiatives that we are advancing are definitely very relevant. We need to build more leadership among our scientific community and identify what are the scientists that can represent our voices. And that needs a lot of efforts, joint efforts. So we are here to integrate as much as we can.
Okay, thank you very much, Karina. So now call Professor Inkem to will talk first concerning the closing remarks.
Okay, it's a little dark where I am. Can you hear me well? It's a little seeing dark where I am.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I suppose this is part of the closing remarks for the whole conference altogether that we've had this whole week long. And I am making these remarks as chair of the Policy and Strategy Committee of the AfLS. And I want to start by, first of all, thanking Philip personally for... Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you
Hello?
now. It was breaking that time. I can hear you.
I'm sorry. Yes, Philip,
I can hear you now.
Sure. I was first of all going to thank you personally for chairing the local organizing committee and for steadfastly steering the whole conference through all the exciting and insightful talks that we've had this week. I also want to thank the whole team of the whole AfLS team that has stayed the course since the founding of the AfLS over the years. The team has been very, very cohesive, very, very ambitious, and very, very harmonic in how it's functioned. It's hard to mention everybody individually, but on behalf of the whole AfLS team, I want to thank Simon Cornell for his steadfast leadership. The amount of time and energy and intellectual trust he gives behind this and personal resources can hardly be quantified. If the AfLS has come this far, it's mostly primarily due to his leadership and all of us who walk around with him. This week has been extremely exciting for me to see how far the AfLS has come. The breadth and variety of talks, the technical aspects, and the presentations by our partners, those from outside Africa, from facilities who want to support the African effort. We very much thank them. It speaks to how far the AfLS has grown, the idea of a light source on the African continent, and the momentum is gathered over the years. I think the whole team should give itself a pat on the back on how far we have come and the amount of momentum and energy and partnerships and interest and all of that we've received from our colleagues from around the world. Now, Africa has its own characteristics. It's very easy to look at what has happened in Europe, in the Americas, in South America, Brazil, in Asia, and with Sesame in the Middle East, and be inspired by what can happen in Africa. But in this our geopolitical context, Africa surely gets a different view globally in the way the global political deciders who distribute resources view Africa, in the way finance views Africa. Africa is not underdeveloped out of lack of effort or lack of intent or knowledge of what to do. Africa's underdevelopment is purposeful policy on the global stage. It's very intentional. And so we are walking against the wind that doesn't see Africa as the rest of the world. And I say this very, very advisedly. So the task ahead of us is very, very, it's a Herculean one. We shouldn't be sidetracked by any naysayers or by any challenges, or if our own effort takes longer than that of other regions of the world. But Africa is coming on strong. The recent free trade area, Africa's effort at working collaboratively through its regions, through regional partnerships, is a spirit that we use as well. The African scientific space is very vibrant, very strong, as we've seen this week. This is not comprehensive of Africa. The mathematical scientists, the biological scientists, all the other spheres of knowledge that Africa practices, they were not very obvious on this meeting. This is a subset of Africa's scientific enterprise. And as strong as we see it, we should look forward to working very collaboratively across the whole African scientific spectrum is the overall Africa's scientific community that will advance the light source to its fruition. Africa's science can only progress if we work in that spirit to make sure that Africa has infrastructure to practice frontier science. The light source is one facility. There are things like supercomputers, IT infrastructure, all the other hard and software that Africa needs to advance itself in the scientific space are still on the horizon. And the example that the light source community here provides would impulse, would radiate and push forward all the other spheres of science on the continent. So this becomes a key issue. Our success would determine in a very big way what Africa's upcoming youth bulge does with itself. It would determine whether Africa's upcoming youth become a liability or an asset to Africa itself and to the globe. Because they'll be able to practice frontier science right here on the continent. They'll be inspired to see Africa in a different light and stay on the continent and not move elsewhere. So the task is large. The prospects are promising. What do I want to say here? The partners from across the globe, many of them are encouraging, but nevertheless, we want to be proud as the AfLS of having come this far, held this many conferences, withstood the COVID pandemic and still come out strong as we are now. And I very much look forward to next year's conference being much more stronger, much more ambitious than this. The African Academy of Sciences, the various academies of science on the continent, the senior scientific practitioners on the continent, the scientific policy people on the continent, they are watching us very closely and they are eager to play a role in making this happen. Ultimately, Africa's scientific futures rest on the success of this light source as the first big action item after the SKA. The SKA was pretty much an South African activity for all its successes. This is the first truly broad-based, bottom-up, Pan-African scientific engagement of high value that we're engaging in. And we want to keep our eyes on the prize and keep going. I want to congratulate everybody, thank everybody who gave a talk, and let you know that as the Strategy and Policy Committee of the AfLS, what you've given us this week is exactly the wind behind our back that after this, we will put into practice and see how we build the momentum forward. Thank you very much. I know my time was limited. Thank you.
Prof. Okay. Now back to you, Gian. Gian? Okay. Check. Okay. Okay, Gian. Yeah. The floor is yours. No, we can't hear you. We can't hear you, Gian. I'm trying to, I think he's trying to. All right, just a few minutes. I think she's trying to sort out the network issue that side. And Okay, Professor, can you say something before Gia managed to, at least, she managed because to connect her phone. You want to say something? Yeah.
Yes, first of all, it's been a great meeting. It's so emotional for me to see how far we've come. I mean, we've actually accomplished quite a bit. I mean, we've done pretty much everything one could do, even producing our conceptual design report. And so things are, but the big connection, I mean, we haven't made the phase transition to top government officials formally adopting what we're doing, and that's the problem. And you know, we have the same issue in the Greater Caribbean region. As you know, we've started a Greater Caribbean light source initiative, and we're struggling trying to get government officials. And then there's the Central Asian Light Source Initiative that we've started. There again, we are struggling with governments. And in that particular case, I don't know if you're aware that we're talking to our colleagues at Electra, since they are upgrading to 4th generation. And there is some possibility of their donating their 3rd generation storage ring to Uzbekistan. And so we are talking now with various government officials. We have at least gotten to the point of talking to people in the Ministry of Science, Technology, and Innovation. And we've talked to rectors of the universities. But that's always a difficult hurdle, going from the idea of this type of a large infrastructure to getting the buy-in from the government. As an aside for the Greater Caribbean Initiative, I mean, one of the things that we're doing is we're beginning to, not formally from the Greater Caribbean, because that is one that wants to site a synchrotron light source in the Caribbean or one of the Latin American countries. However, Puerto Rico, which is a part of the U.S., lost due to hurricane its observatory called the Arecibo Observatory, and people in Puerto Rico have been wanting another large infrastructure. So there are a number of us working now toward gathering momentum to present this idea to the U.S. government. So there again, it's, you know, the problem is always going from the idea to getting the government. Is that Jihan?
Hello?
Okay, so is that Jihan?
Yes, can you hear me
Oh,
now?
you are? Okay, so I will, let me just make one final comment before I go on. And this is sort of a general, I mean, the time scale for these type of large infrastructures, somehow we need to be able to reduce that. Because when you're talking about, you know, 10, 15, 20 years, it's just too much. And I think a lot of the stuff time can be shortened on the front end, and we just have to figure out a way to do that. Okay, thank you so much, and thanks to everyone for attending the conference. I'll turn it over to Jihan.
Hello?
Okay, thank you very much, Jihan. Yeah.
Yeah, so now you can hear me better, right?
Yes.
So sorry for the internet issues. As I said, I have a problem today. So I also would like to give a few notes as being part of the this initiative and also for the conference. And as we see that we are also ending and closing the African Light Source Conference of this year, I also thank all my colleagues in the African Light Source Foundation, the whole team of organizers, the international committees, supporters, and everyone who believes in us and in having an African light source in this continent and its future. I also thank the speakers and attendees. Without you, we wouldn't feel any success. We strongly hope to stay in touch with each one of you as concrete and a part of our global team that's getting stronger day by day. Actually, apart from the practical remarks that Nkem and Sikazi gave, now I echo them, of course, but I would like to share a human perspective towards the importance of having such facility. I have a strong belief that we are all serving a purpose in our life with different tools and ways. Ours here is science, of course. A lot of science perspectives and advancements were already presented. But I would like to share with you a human perspective why we should all work with the emerging light sources, whether African, Mexican, Caribbean, or else. So throughout the conference, there was also a lot of inspiration and momentum presented by many speakers. Each added a layer to our knowledge and our way of thinking on how to proceed and what to do in the future of our plans. But I would like also to get in particular to the African light source and Africa, which is taking so long time to materialize. And as a person, some of you already know me, I'm working for Sesame, which is also the first light source in the Middle East. I can always convey a testimony and a message of optimism and assurance despite the long journey and the so many obstacles of all kinds. Sesame was also introduced to me in 2005 when I attended its annual users meeting at that time. Then at that time, it was nothing, just to say the simple thing. Then in 2015, I joined Sesame as a staff member, and it was only an empty building with a slowly growing community. After 10 years now, and having Sesame operational in 2017, we always say that Sesame came into operation after being a dream for us. It took more than 25 years to bring it to a reality, to overcome all the conflicts, the poor resources, the different and accumulated points of view, and above all, to keep the momentum and motivation and our hard work. Those were and still strongly backed and strengthened with huge international support and recognition. We at Sesame always say that we wouldn't exist without such international support and cooperation on all the levels. We also believe that it's all about having a strong and faithful community that we can rely on at any time. Now, from the heart of the Middle East, from the heart of the war, we are still there, and nothing can challenge our message of peace more than this. We go to work every day, and if it's not for us, it's for others, for the next generations. We were always fighting to succeed. Now we are fighting to exist, and it's still a worthy challenge. I believe that there are so much in common between all of us in the Middle East and in Africa, whether the challenges or the goals to achieve. And this is how we should think together about the African light source. We should contribute with all the possible efforts and hard work, and we should all fight to bring this dream into another reality. And I believe also that this will never happen without transparency, cooperation, and solidarity. I always say in my presentations that Africa is not poor, Africa is not weak, and it's not ignorant. And if it was left behind in the past, then it's something that we must not allow it to happen again. And again, it's not a matter of having another light source while we have so many across the world. It's a matter of building and promoting a national voice that can fulfill national objectives and that can equally share the front line with other advanced facilities contributing to global science arena. The African light source is not only, which is not only a light source, it's just one dimension of science advancements in Africa, should not be the dream of Africans only. I believe it should be the dream of anyone who believes in equality, unity, and dignity. The African light source has received strong international support and recognition so far, but most importantly, it won its own community. That's the cornerstone of any strong facility. And we have always to remember that even the strongest and the most advanced facilities can lose too much if not supported and strengthened by its own scientific communities, by its own people. The same principle, of course, applies for all the new facilities, one day or another. The emerging light sources, those are in the planning phase now, being African, Mexican, Caribbean. We'll thank every single one who helped with any effort in bringing them forward. And they will come into service exactly as Sesame did, and not only for the Middle East or Africa or Latin America, but for the whole world. I thank you so much, and I look forward to our next conference. Thank you so much.
Thank you again. I thank you very much for the word of advice. I would like to thank everyone that contributes for toward the success of this conference, and whether from the technical part or the academic part presenter or those listening, we all appreciate you so much. And it's true enough for give me if I fail to thank those as well who really contributed, especially of Simon Connor, Sekasi, as well as Lawrence and Gian. In fact, you're consistent in science. I'm still saying it is challenging, and hope for me to be learning more from your experience as well as the leadership skill. And now to the IOC members, we all achieved this together. It's not about Philip, it's about collective effort. We all do this, we all achieve this milestone together. So therefore, on behalf of the IOC committee, I think every good thing must have at least a good ending. So it looks as if I should continue in the scientific world activities every day. But I still believe that we have to end it, and we hope to see every one of us next year. So on behalf of the IOC, I hereby declare the conference closed. So we can open our something just to say bye-bye and wave our hand, and then just to say goodbye. Yeah. Thank you very much. And okay, nice to see your face because I don't know, I'm just seeing your face today. All right, Lawrence, bye-bye. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you.
Thank
Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.